Good evening, everybody. This is the Carver Finance Committee for February 24th. Could we all please rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank Area 58 for recording this tonight. Public comment time, anybody? Seeing none. Do you gentlemen mind if we skip around a little bit? Does the committee mind also? Ms. Dayhill asked me if we could make this quick for her tonight on a transfer request. She'd like to, with early voting and stuff,
Sure.
I'd like to get out, like to get out of here as soon as she can. So without any objection from the committee, we have, Carver, come on up. We have two transfer requests. I don't know, we'll take the first one, I guess. 6769, registrars and election.
Would you like me to tell you a little bit about where we ran short while you guys are looking it over? We do coding of the ballot cards for the elections, and the most expensive one we do is the presidential primary. Because of all the town committees listed on it, there's an extra expense in coding those cards. So that bill, I ran into the red on, and that was $1,444. So today, I called them just to anticipate what the local election will cost to code, because I have to take those cards, I only have 2 weeks to turn them around and have them recoded. So I can't be waiting to get approval, or they just won't code them if I don't pay them. So that's gonna be another 500 and something. So I added that, and that's where I came up with my 1969 for the coding of the cards. I went one step further, and I asked about the anticipation of the ballot printing for the local election, and that's going to be roughly about $1,700, not knowing the size of our ballot quite yet. I kind of had a rude awakening and found out that I was responsible for the food expenses for these elections too. Normally my assistant would cover it and then be reimbursed, but don't really have an assistant right now to do that with, so that's kind of on me too. And I've recently incurred quite a few expenses on my own credit cards with the training and the seminars I've been going to. So I figured I'd better put that in there, because I won't have election workers if I don't feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a 17-hour day. I don't expect them to, come and sit there all day and be hungry. Office election worker help. I've had one of my senior work-off election workers who's been with us for about 6 years. She's instrumental. She's Patty Batson. She's been just wonderful. She's the one that arranged all my election workers, got them on a schedule, helped me organize everything, because if not, I'd be going into this blind. She's been through our elections here before, so she was super helpful. And we may not need that, because I found out today that I lost my other part-time person, so we may be able to draw part-time off of that salary line to help pay for her. But I wanted to make sure that was included in there, because she's already put in, probably 33 hours of election prep time over and above.
Am I wrong, or do you have enough money in your registrar budget to not require this transfer?
I will, but I'm gonna run out of it. I haven't, I have election workers to pay. The other huge expense that hopefully will be reimbursed for is the early voting. We have a whole week of early voting, and I have 8 people to 10 people a day extra coming in every day for early voting. So that will increase in the next budget too, because we have 2 weeks in October. And I don't know how long it takes, being new, that the state will reimburse, but it's supposed to be funded back to us and earmarked for us to come back into the budget, so.
But unless I'm misreading this, as of February 24th, today, you still have $14,587 in the election budget. Am I correct? Is that right?
There is still some money in there. I couldn't print out a new one. I'm going by my old one. All I was told is that I was in the red on all my accounts. As they started putting the bills in, they denied them, so.
The first place I'm showing you in the red is on the town clerk operating.
Okay, well then maybe they're trying to take some of them out of there.
This is the number that I'm referring to.
Okay, let me look at that.
We can't do a transfer request to additionally fund a budget that still has.
Right, that still has money in it. You did explain that. Well, maybe we won't do the transfer request today, then I'll take what I have out of here somehow. But you're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul because you'll run out of money on something else then, you know, with the big bills that we have for it.
I'm sure we will, but like I said, I can't.
Okay, well, we'll wait, and I'll try to do it before April if we look like we're low then, because like I said, with the card coding and stuff, if we don't have the funds for it, they simply won't do it, and then we don't have an election.
Okay. Am I reading that right, Michael?
What section?
I'm looking on the back of page 2 of 2, on the front page on the summary. 14,587 is left of a 17,500 budget. So that would seem to not require any transfer. Is that wrong?
Is it the bucketing?
I'm going by the backside of this page here.
So, let me just first begin, is I see we've got a conundrum here, is that we have an election coming up, so we need to make sure that the election has the appropriate funding to do it, which has happened in all previous elections, and we've had money to do that. That being said, I just received this reserve fund request, and the ink's still wet, that I just signed a few minutes ago just to move this along. To your question specifically, based upon this report for the elections and regular operations, is that to date, it looks like in that department, 8.88% has been spent overall, of which 16% of that is for operations and the rest is salary, so no salary has been used. So from the election standpoint, there is definitely funds in there that should cover many of these items. What I can't tell you off the top of my head is to what the actual spend is throughout the year and what else needs to be done. But again, specifically to your question, there is money available in the elections and registration department, which, as we all know, the clerk's office is divided into 2 sections.
Right.
That's a second section. In regards to the other section, because again, this is Kara's business here, when we look at the town clerk operations, we definitely have funding in the salary line item. That's at 64%, which is probably about right for this time of the year. Might actually be a little bit low. So there may be some money in the clerical salaries and department head salaries to cover some of this. I'd have to take a hard look at that. However, you do see that the expenses in this category have been pretty much expended by over $2,000 compared to what is authorized in there. So clearly on this side, again, I have not had the opportunity to look at what's been spent. But there is a deficit of $2,000 that has been overexpended, and there is a request for some additional funding in that department, in that division. I think, just off the top of my head, that some of the consulting fees should be able to be addressed in some of the salary line items, but I don't know if that full $3,500 can be absorbed in that.
Are any of these expenses in the town clerk's department supposed to go over to the registrar's department? Are they just in the wrong area?
How the previous town clerks have done it, it has been split, so there are definitely election costs, such as, I think that's been put in here, the coding of the ballots, the printing of the election ballots, the food for elections. Those should all be in the bottom category for sure. Whereas the additional request for dog applications, that's a clerk item versus an election item, so that should be in the clerk item. If there wasn't enough money in printing, which it looks like the $2,500 that was spent is in printing, and I'm just picking that one out right now, was only $500 budgeted. To me, what that tells me is there was a coding issue that clearly, if you look at the election side, that there's $4,800 in printing. So my guess is that when the clerk's office sent some of the information to the accounting office, they didn't tell the accounting office properly what category to put it into. And again, I'm just speaking without having the detail here, that's just what it appears to be, because the clerk's office has less of printing than what the elections require. So I think there's some coding issues that need to be addressed in here. But as I said in the beginning of my statement is that why I signed this blindly was that there's an election coming up and we need to make sure there's ample funds to do the election.
Right.
Do I think that this is all necessary? No, I don't. Do I know if it should be less or more than this? No, I don't. I just am just providing, you know, there's, what is it, March 3rd, I think is the, no, what is it, March 5th?
March 3rd.
March 3rd, is that, you know, there needs to be some coding of stuff that needs to be done. But then again, it looks like there is money in the election account, $14,000, that's still left.
There's
that could-
4,300 still in postage in the election account,
Right.
and you're asking for $150 in postage on the clerk's side.
We have
So-
to send out cards. There's a lot of mailings that we have to do. The postage just went up, and it's 65 cents a mailing for each absentee ballot, and we sent out quite a few absentee ballots.
But that wouldn't be in the clerk's, that would be
No.
in the, that would be in the
That would
election
be in
side.
the election side. On the clerk side, where we were in the negative, it was for the 2020 census that went out. The 2020 census, that was $1,800. That was the first roadblock that I hit. And I was like, oh, this doesn't make me feel good if they didn't account for the census, because that's something that happens every year. So that would have come out of printing.
But it wouldn't have come out of postage. Would it come out of
There is a
printing?
portion of the bill that is considered postage, because they mail those for us. And then there were cards, affirmation cards that were mailed out, gosh, soon after I got in. And those cards cost quite a bit, and that came out of postage. Our new dog license program, unfortunately, people just don't send in self-stamped envelopes, so we find ourselves being paid and then having their license and saying, gosh, you know, we try calling them. If they don't come, eventually we have to mail them. There's some people that just simply can't come in, and that's why they've done it online, or, you know, the easier way to do it. So we're still having a problem with that. If they do it online through the dog licensing program, they're charging an extra 70 cents to cover it, but the people that are still doing it through the census aren't giving the self-stamped envelope. So that's 50 cents every time we have to, you know, just for the postage to send it.
So my thought on this is there clearly needs to be a relook at how stuff has been coded to make sure it's in the right buckets. I mean, for the last 6 years, we've been making sure that everyone follows their budget, and all departments do, and they keep it in the right bucket. That being said, I do think it's appropriate for the committee to authorize some amount of funding just for the elections until this can get cleared up. But I would suggest that there are some errors that are in here that need to be relooked at, and things need to be put into the right department. Again, we do the census every year, we do the affirmation cards. I mean, a lot of these things are annual type things that normally happen. You know, could a cost of postage not have been picked up in the budget when this budget was prepared by the previous clerk? That's something that could have happened. But there would have been postage in there for the census, and as this thing was calculated, as well as for food and stuff like that. But again, in my earlier statement, I think that we need to make sure that there's ample money to do the election. I think that maybe right after the election is done, that by that time, hopefully, the clerk's office can straighten out the coding errors that are done, so that, you know, in mid-March, you can have a better understanding of where the dollar allocation should be and what the net results are in each one of the departments, of these two departments.
So, you gotta work with me a little bit. I'm just
Yeah.
getting this
No,
information.
No,
In
that's
fact, this-
fine. Like I said, I need to pay my bills when, you
No, I
know, for
get
2
that.
weeks, I haven't been able to pay my
Well-
2 packets, so if
I-
I don't pay LHS for the coding, they won't code again for us, and we need to turn it around really quickly, so
I
that...
have an email from the finance director dated today at 12:30. As an update, I sent you financial, everybody has a copy of this, I assume?
Yes.
As an update, I sent you financial info for the town clerk's office for tonight's meeting. I have not seen the town clerk, so no request for a copy, but you got it this afternoon.
Got it, yeah, I
That's
was
fine.
super busy today.
In consulting with the accounting staff, and this is kind of what disturbs me a little bit, in consulting with the accounting staff, there are 3 packets of bills from the town clerk's office that have been sitting in accounting due to insufficient funds, as well as inadequate documentation. The town clerk staff has been made fully aware of the situation, but no steps have been made to provide adequate documentation. What is she talking about?
No. One of the things that I submitted to her was a reimbursement from the training I went to in Devon's at the beginning of February. So I figured out my mileage, I figured out everything. I was missing my cover sheet that they asked for, but I had all my receipts, everything was, you know, made copies of, and I submitted it. I have a brand-new person in my office who had some training in SoftWrite and should be taking over those duties, and this is maybe one of her first or second attempts at doing the bills. So, yeah, they got kicked back, and then we had to look at why they got kicked back. But the worst thing was my consultant didn't get paid. So today, she was very hesitant to come in. She came in for a little bit just because the fellow from LHS with the voting machines was coming in to show us what to do if we had a problem with a jam or anything. So it was important for her to see that, but she'd like to be paid. She's been coming in since January, and
She hasn't gotten any money?
no, she hasn't gotten any money, so she's not very happy.
Is she presenting you with a bill?
She presented me with a small bill to get us started. She knows that, you know, it was, I think, $360. It wasn't a lot of money. But when I submitted that, I couldn't get that. And they're pretty much saying to me, I realize that probably we do have to move some things around and shift some things to pay people, but when I'm this busy, I can't stop to think about where that should go, and I'm looking for some help to do that, because we need to cover our bills. We probably have some categories that have changed. I'm a brand-new clerk. I have training, I have seminars to go to, things that maybe Lynn didn't need to go to, or she could go to by choice, but didn't necessarily have to. I absolutely have to. So the training and the seminars and the travel for that, I absolutely need. My bill going to Devon's for 2 nights was, I think, just under $600.
And you haven't gotten that back?
No, I haven't gotten it back, you know.
And the consultant hasn't gotten paid any money at all?
No, she hasn't.
Is that Ms. Parker?
That's Miss Parker, yep.
And she's presented a bill?
And she's presented a bill, so they'll send it back to me. I didn't have this problem early on. They want more documentation with things. Unfortunately, when she comes in, she's trying to save us money. She's not going to sit around all day. She'll come in for a few hours, do what she needs to do, and leave, so she's not charging us. By the time I find out, it's just the timing's off, and I have to wait to see her again to, you know, gee, Nada, what do you think we should put on here? And, you know, my thing is pretty much the same thing. I'm, you know, short-staffed and I need help, and we're all inexperienced in there, and we desperately need her. So that should justify that bill, I think.
Well, I have no problem with that. The trouble comes when the auditors come in, and then they want to know, how come you paid this, and then we don't have the right in their format. and
Oh,
then
she's done.
We get the spanking.
Done her tax papers. She's done
That's-
all
that's
of
all.
that. That's, you know.
So if at the very least we get you to an even number on the town clerk operating
That would make me
subtotal,
happy. That would make me
Can-
happy.
Can we request that the finance department work with you, I mean, after the election, obviously?
Yes, exactly, yep.
And let's find out if there's places that money got coded into a spreadsheet that could have been coded elsewhere.
Right.
So that it's not as upside down as it looks.
I want to be good, too, going
And
forward.
then if that comes up
Right.
short or something like
Right.
that, we'd be more than happy to make the transfer. I don't have any trouble with that.
I worry, because I have 2 more elections in the upcoming budget that are gonna hit.
Oh, we promise
And
you. You'll
It was
have-
based
you'll
on
have
this
enough.
budget, so I thought if I'm already out of money now, the stress of it, it's horrible, you know? I like to pay bills, actually, I just
It's
need to
just-
have the money to do it, you know?
Just a job, don't
Karen,
get
yeah.
stressed.
Oh, no, I love it.
Job.
It's not just a
Okay.
job.
Karen, do you know what you paid out of the printing already in the election register account?
In the election
really-
registrar,
1,700, you mean?
Yeah, that's 1,700. I'm just wondering if it's related to this 1,700 for the local election.
no, because we
It's
haven't
different?
done that yet.
Okay.
We haven't done it yet. That may have been for the local election that hit this budget when I was elected. That's probably what that was,
Okay.
because he told me the prices really hadn't gone up today. If anything, he said, you know, maybe 10%. He says you could budget another 10%, but he said usually those prices are hard and firm, and it goes with, I think, up to 2,000 to 5,000 ballots cost that, depending on the ballot style, and then over 10,000, which we probably would never see in town, would need an additional amount. So I tried to project that today really quick at like 4:30, you know, try to get him on the phone to get some answers, because we were just so busy. And, you know, when you're running around with, like a chicken with your head cut off, and you present the bills, and then they tell you, oh, can't pay it, and then I'm like, we're not gonna make it to the next step unless we pay these, you know? I just wanna alleviate any problems before they become disasters.
The training and travel, you still have $874 in the
Okay.
clerk's side.
Yep, there's,
So that can be covered for
yep,
that.
and there are more coming up before July, so.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board here?
Can I ask real quick, just for my own edification, but the coding of the ballot cards, that's essential for the election?
That is essential, you do not get a
Do we know
ballot.
why that wasn't included in the election, in the budget?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Each budget would have, you know, let's see. This year is the big year because you have 4 elections. So you have 3 elections. That's what Mrs. Parker had mentioned to me earlier today that we had to spend for. So it could be when the former clerk was going out, she just didn't foresee it. She just didn't think about it, or, you know, I'm gonna be gone, it's not a concern, I don't
Possible, if
know.
they copied last year's budget
Yeah,
and didn't include, we didn't have any elections last year but the
Yeah.
town election.
yeah.
you know.
And what happened to me going forward was, I
Really?
sat down with Elaine and they took this budget and said, okay, your next budget is gonna be this. And at the time, I'm brand new, I'm so green, I don't know. And now I know, now I'm starting to see where I'm gonna need money, and I'm afraid that I won't have enough going into the presidential. That's another worry for another day, but right now, this is what I have in
That's
front
a
of me.
whole other fiscal year.
That's a whole nother fiscal year, thankfully, yep.
All right, so how about if we do this?
Well, if we look here, we need at least about $3,700 to cover these ballot printings. It looks like there's only 3,000 in the account. Should we at least put 700 in there to cover her to print,
3,000?
right, in printing?
Okay.
Just to get the line item. close.
You wanna do with the consultant? We gotta get this consultant
Yeah.
paid too. 3,500 is for the consultant in office.
That's through the end of the fiscal year. That's not the balance that's due this
No,
time.
that's just to get to July 1st.
Yeah, what do we owe her?
What do we owe her right now? She presented a bill for 3 days, but that was 2 weeks ago for $360. So I'm not sure, I'd say we probably owe her probably another $1,000 on top of that right now. She hasn't given me another bill. I'll get one from her tomorrow.
Do you know why she hasn't received that 360 yet?
I presented it, and they told me there was no money in my budget. That's what I was told. And normally, I would investigate that, but I've been running around, like I said, like a chicken with my head cut off trying to do everything, so.
Would that normally be paid out of other professional services?
I would say that would be the category, looking at other
Like, is that where
budgets
that
too.
was paid out
Yeah,
of?
but we're already in the red there.
Yeah.
Because that had nothing in it to begin with.
Mhm.
So you can't find fault with that, because it wasn't budgeted.
And Lynn probably wouldn't have anticipated that either.
Yeah.
So, I guess just for some clarification, answer a few questions that are going on, is there has been a need to hire additional staff support, which is being described as consultants. Those categories should be coming out of the salary line item because we haven't had, there was a period we didn't have full staffing there.
Right.
And now we have a period where somebody just quit. So that extra funding should be covering these additional staffing consultants that are there. So I think that that just needs to be properly coded going forward. My understanding is that the accounting office has tried to meet and go over these items, and, as Kara said, she's running like a chicken with her head cut off, and a lot of things going on, and this is the concern that we have, is that, even though there's an election going on, there's still auditing requirements that need to be done, and things need to be put into the proper categories. This is just everything hitting at once, and we don't have good numbers to figure out what the needs are. I'm going to go back to my earlier statement. We want to make sure that there is some money put in there, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done. Everybody in town hall is busy. I mean, Dave and John run the whole town with 7 people, managing all the streets and everything like that. So we're all busy. We all have stories like that. But there just needs to be time made to figure this out. I would encourage you to put some money into the account to get us through the elections. I would suggest that when you have your mid-March meeting, is you ask the clerk to come back and explain where her funds went. I think at the time, since we don't have somebody here from the accounting office to explain the efforts they have tried to do to help this situation out, I think it'd be good for you to hear from them as to what's really going on. And then from there, then we can look from the middle of March through the rest of the year to figure out what needs to be done for the rest of that time period. If anything is out of whack, again, it should be the cost of postage and maybe an additional mailing of something that may have been missed out. It should not be anything significant. When it comes into coding, those should have been included in the budget. I'd be surprised if they weren't. Whether or not they were 4 versus 2, we can take a look at that, but I would try to hold off those things until the middle of March.
I think the election's covered anyway. You got 3,500 in operating, you got 4,295 still in postage, you got 3,003 in printing. So we can certainly
Take it from there.
work with some of that. I'd like to see us try to make the shortfall whole and make sure there's enough money to pay this nice lady that's come and helped us, that hasn't gotten a check yet.
Yeah, and I would just like to say too, as far as accounting working with me, there's a problem, you don't have enough money, that's what I hear. No one's actually said, maybe if you take this from here and move it to here, we can do this. It just keeps getting thrown back at me, and it's kind of frustrating when I'm so busy. Brand new people in there that are, basically just a receptionist, can't do anything that I need to have done, and I'm doing everything. So it's a lot, Eventually, these people will, be up to speed, but, when you're putting out 1,000,000 fires, you can't stop for that. And if you're just told, no, this isn't good, do it again, it's kind of hard, to find the time to even do it. So I anticipate that we'll sit down and work when things get quiet and find a way to make it work, but it doesn't help me when I'm super busy. I need to get them paid.
We should cover the minus 1485 in professional service, and we should cover the 2011 shortfall in printing. Bring those numbers together. And seminar and training is already $874, but she needs to be reimbursed $650 for the seminar, and we still gotta pay this. Well, the consultant's not coming out of seminar and training.
No.
The consultant's gonna come out of a payroll end.
Yeah, which I didn't think I could do,
Which
which
is
is why
over.
we never took it out of there.
So we need 650.
So let's put the $650 in, leave the $874 where it is.
And the 1485.
Put the $1485 in the 2011. What does that give us?
$4,146.61.
That's what I have as well.
4,100, sorry, thought it
$46.61.
was, my pen didn't write with the 4, 61 cents. That gonna work for you?
That's fair.
If we do that,
Yep.
we'll leave the 874 right where it is. We'll put 650 in additional. So that'll take care of your reimbursement.
Thank you.
Then we'll zero out the 1485, so that's no longer in the red. And we'll zero out the 2011. Then you can go on to the other side, on the
And take,
election side,
yep.
and take from that postage and printing.
Yep.
So, and then we can figure out if something was coded in error.
Well, I tried to justify today that even the training that I went to, half of it was 2020 elections. So if you wanted to take it out of that end, you could, but,
Beth is the only one on this table that understands what these little numbers on the far
yeah.
left are.
Thank you, Beth.
Am I wrong?
The equipment,
Because I could never do this. Do you know what all those numbers mean? You do, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes home and reads them in her sleep. She likes
Good.
this.
what about the shortage in equipment rental for 413?
Yeah, you want to, yeah, zero that. Well, if you want to
Yeah.
zero that, I'm.
That's
okay
my
with
copier,
That's the copy?
Yeah.
Get them all.
and that's a constant
So let's do
expense of
that.
$103.85 a month.
Michael, do you have a blank transfer request form?
I do not know.
Okay, we'll have to scribble up this one.
I would just scribble on that and initial the new number.
So $4,560.57.
60,
And that's from the elections, or is that?
456,057, and the town clerk,
Into
operating.
clerk account.
that's operating. So on the second one, we're gonna do nothing with the
Yep, for now.
6769. And on this one here, that's, is that a 43, a 6325, isn't it? Is that a 6? So we're gonna change that number.
Oh, 43.25.
Oh, it's 43?
Sorry,
Well, you
yes.
did better, we're gonna give you 45.
Yep.
45, 60, 57. And then we're just gonna make a note as to what it's going to.
Must be rubbing off.
I'm gonna attach this with it.
And which line item are we putting the 650 into?
650 is going into seminar and training. So that'll stay at 874 with an additional 650. And then we zero out the other negatives. So the 45, 60, 57, I'm gonna make a little note on this to see attached. Kara, could you, I'm gonna ask you to
Sure.
initial this.
Sure.
We haven't voted on it yet, but we might.
No. I won't.
Initial. Anybody got any questions? Anybody else? I'll take a motion.
Quick, sorry, Alan,
I'm
quick
sorry.
question. So this will make us whole, right?
This will make us whole there,
What about
plus.
future?
It'll bring us to the plus, because we're gonna take these minuses away, and we're gonna add 650 to the 874.
Okay, but this sounds like we're trending towards needing to borrow
I
more
may
money.
come back
How do we-
again.
I don't know that, because we
Yeah.
have a lot in the election side, and we're not sure what's been coded
Okay,
yet.
just moving, okay.
So they're shifting money around because they were understaffed, there was some excess payroll.
Yep,
They may not need, so we can always have them, come back for a transfer.
that was really my question. What's the
Yeah.
process?
Oh, no,
Is
this
it the
should
transfer
come back.
process coming back?
She can come back every meeting if you'd like.
Thank
Be
you.
happy to see.
Thank you.
This is a pain in the neck for you.
No, I don't want to do it to you guys either.
I think when you do like a reclass between the two departments.
I think so too, because there are so many categories that I would put in my budget that aren't there, that I think, fees, professional, other, interstate travel, there are a bunch that probably should go in there, so.
Yeah.
Now that I know the job better as I'm getting into it, it's a whole new world, so, and these elections are, you just don't know what's in front of you with them, so I'm starting to find out.
Pat?
The reality of this is we're not talking about a whole lot of money. But at the same time, there's got to be a sense of, it's incumbent upon you to know what's in your accounts and what it's there for, and what, if anything, you can do with it. To do things in anticipation of something, in fact, a transfer like this should be like the last resort. And to doing things in anticipation, don't forget, you can be in anticipation of account going over, but there's also the possibility of an account going under. So we should use a step-by-step process here to cover what we know, to cover where it's, what it's for and why it's going there. But again, Kara, it's incumbent upon you to know your accounts, the balances of them, what they're there for, whether you made the budget or not. You know, that's pretty important, that's a pretty important feature.
It is. The week of early voting, that's just been sprung on us since last year, so there's not really a pattern to follow there.
And that's fine, and we can do this again, and we can do it more than once. But I think that the transfer is the last resort type thing, and I think that there's other things in here that can be done with an understanding, you know, of the accounts, how it was built, how it's going to be spent, and then some internal transfers can be made to cover other things.
Anyone else? I'll take a motion.
I wrote it down, so I'll make the motion to approve the transfer of $4,560.57, of which will be $650 to seminar and training. Equipment rental will be $413.96. Other professional services will be $1,485, and printing for $2,011.61.
I
Any
second.
second?
I second.
Motion made and seconded to what she said. I'll have to repeat it again. Oh,
Oh, me, George.
George talks very softly. You have to speak up. I got yelled at by
Yes, sir.
Diane at the beginning.
Will do, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You got it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your
I'm
time.
gonna also need instead of having a motion to disapprove this, why don't we just withdraw it?
Okay, that's fine.
All right? Make it
Second
easy.
side?
Yep,
Huh?
You're talking about the other side?
Yeah, no, the other side, yeah,
the registrars.
the registrars, we'll just withdraw that for the time being, rather than have to go through a motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on, don't go away, I'm gonna give you this and you
Okay.
can hand it to Meg
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay, perfect.
Actually, quick question, Kara.
Sure.
We talked last time about these new voting machines. Would
$160.
the registrar expenses, any of these go away if we had the new machines, or are these must-have?
There are a few expenses that would go away. Our printing ribbons, we were talking about it today.
Yep.
They're minimal, though, compared to that. But the cards that they're coded on, it kind of looks like a memory card, but it's big, and it has all of our information on it. So when we're going to prepare, let's say for the local election, it's going to put every person that's running on that ballot on that card, and you stick that card in the machine. The technology hasn't changed that much that you don't need the cards. You still need the cards. That's the technology that everyone uses with it. There's just some, improvements in the functionality of it, whether or not it jams, and that when you're putting your ballot in, it'll sit there and tell you, your ballot's approved, it went through, and you can walk away from the machine knowing that, you were successful in voting, so.
soon as Michael comes out with my copy,
Okay.
you can take that one
Okay, thank you.
and give it to Meg tomorrow. And like I said, just let us know what you need.
Okay, thank you.
Once it gets, I think once they get it all squared away.
I think it'll be
you'll in great shape.
seamless.
Yeah,
Yep,
think you'll be
I do.
fine. Thank you, sir. All set. Thank you,
Okay,
Carl.
thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Okay. The first item on the list, presentation of the operations and maintenance budget. John Woods and Dave Siedentop. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Very good, yourself?
All right.
Thank you for having us.
You have color brochures and stuff for us?
No,
No.
sorry.
Wow. Do you have any paper for us? No.
No.
Does anybody have a copy of the budget?
Oh, I
You think wait a minute, I might have. Hold on. Gotta find your calendar. Might have to, I'm sorry.
It's the opposite meeting.
Yes. I'll share with Patty. Just make sure you give it back.
You'll never see it again. Yeah, I guess. We're sharing. We're sharing. The one thing I didn't.
I took two, yes.
Oh, my God, really?
It's all right.
Now you have a colored printout. Yes?
Now I have color. Yeah, this is awesome. Okay. Good evening, gentlemen. We'll try this
Evening.
again.
So as you'll see, our budget overall pretty much maintained level funded. The one increase in it that went up is we are requesting, July 1 this year, we had a clerical person start at 19 hours a week, which was necessary. As our department grows, so do the services that we do in-house. And we are requesting that 19-hour-a-week person has been a huge asset to John and I in the office, just between payroll that has to get done weekly, all our billing and other services. And we're requesting that go to 40 hours a week. It is warranted for a full-time position. With the amount of billing that we do, the payroll, and other areas of the department that they can help us out with, some of the software. So that is the one big increase we are looking for, to make that full-time, 40 hours a week. Pretty much everything else is level funded from last year. Actually, there's been a few reductions on a couple of the line items, and we can certainly, let me know what your pleasure is if you'd like to go over them line item individually. There was a decrease on a few of them, which we did voluntarily to try to match the overall town's bottom line. So we've dropped them down in areas where I felt we could decrease to help do that.
Is that office worker already built into this budget? Is it in the clerical salary line?
Yes, it's under the clerical salary. The 20 budget is at her at 19 hours a week, and the 21 requested is her at a 40-hour, or 37 and a half, I believe, FTE.
Okay.
Do you have it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I see. This is when you didn't have a secretary at all. You guys were doing most of this work. which
Correct.
kept you
Up
out of
in-
out of the field. So I'm sure, this is Carrie, right? This
Yes.
is a great asset for that office, because she does the work for both departments, well, operations and maintenance.
Yes. Yep. And it was a good transition where she was familiar, where they were doing some of the support work out of the town administrator's
Right.
office, which she transferred from. So it was a very good transition. It's helped us out tremendously.
I think it's great that the O&M is staffed. For the longest while, well, all last year before she came on, You call, and if they happen to be in the office, they answered the phone. If they didn't, you left a message, or, you know, you didn't get a hold of them, and now it's a lot different. They were doing all the paperwork, they were responding to emails, they were doing all the stuff. When you think about running this whole town with 7 guys, having one of them is sitting in the office,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And she's actually doing, you know, by her taking that on, it's allowing us to, you know, focus our attention where it should be, as well. Not doing the, you know, the work she can do.
This is gonna be easy. Any questions?
I do. So the department head, is that new for 2021?
Yes, there was a shift. When this was merged, my salary stayed on the school department side.
Okay.
So I am coming over to the town side now.
Okay.
Yes.
I knew something had to have happened. So this was
Part of
there.
the reduction in what the school takes,
Yeah.
how the school reduced from where they were getting the 70 point whatever it was to 69 point whatever it.
Yes.
how-
So
This
I'm-
is how those numbers happen. There was no savings in money, there were just some things that were shifted from the school back to the town.
Yeah, I noticed the increase. That's why. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Used to be very confusing, because we knew you were in operations and maintenance, but one was on the town side, you were in the school side,
Correct.
and it was almost, it just didn't make a lot of sense. It made much more sense to combine it and put it in one place, which is what the school committee did and the town did, and I think that was better than that.
You know, back a number of years ago, when I was in the school department administration, I worked real close with Dave when he was the facility director for the school department. And it's good to see him in this position, because a more competent and capable person you will not find. But Dave, in the transition,
Yes.
which has been about 3 years going on now, I'm sure there were some growing pains and so forth, but do you see any lingering issues or any types of maybe financial or budgetary issues that still may have a degree of importance to you?
Nothing major. I mean, in John and my world is there's a lot of unknowns. I think more than any other department in the town. We had 60 degrees today. We could get hit with a blizzard in 2 weeks. That could turn
From
out.
your mouth to God's ears.
So there's a lot of unknowns. I try to, you know, part of our job is capital planning. A lot of the towns larger. I mean, we manage the town's biggest assets. Try to plan on all capital jobs for them, the schools, the buildings. And just because we have a new building doesn't mean that we don't spend any money on it. That's part of why we ended up in a bad mess. Is it's not a, you know, you buy it and you forget it. As we all know with cars, you're all homeowners, you own cars. Just because you buy something new doesn't mean that it doesn't need maintenance. We keep up on the maintenance, even though it's a burden cost, it saves you in the long run. And that's our job. Operating is, so we try to plan for the large-scale projects, which hopefully we do a good job. But just my biggest, not concern, but is just the costs of everything have escalated so much in the last few years. I mean, what used to be, I mean, you all know as people, what used to be, you know, $20 was nothing. Now, $100 is nothing. And it's just on such a larger scale on the vendors we deal with, the materials we deal with. $1,000 as a homeowner is $100. I mean, the cost of everything are, and I'm lucky, we have a lot of talented in-house people where, you know, I buy the stuff at wholesale cost and we get it done that way, but the cost of things are just astronomical to get anything done these days. And you always try to plan on what's around the corner, but the reality is we don't know, and, you know, we try to avoid that, but, you know, so I think our line items are in a good place. Obviously, you know, if there was money, I could certainly spend it. That wouldn't be an issue. It wouldn't go to waste. But I think we're not in a place where I'm saying I need another $250,000 to make things perfectly smooth. Could I use $250,000? Absolutely. But I don't think we're taking the wrong path by not having it.
You're in front of the wrong committee for that amount of money. You have to go see Jack. Good luck.
Try not to.
Good luck.
Dave, the big jump in regular salaries? is
Pardon
that
me, George?
The big jump in regular salaries?
The big jump, I think that's because, one, to the clerical salary is going from a 19-hour-a-week to full-time at 37, and then my salary was added into that as well.
That's in the 801, 987?
Yes.
No.
No,
No,
Oh, no. So that regular salaries,
that's what I was wondering.
they're union, right?
yes, so those are contractual
So that's the
obligations.
contractual
Okay.
Yes.
obligation.
And there was that
Yeah.
big a jump in the thing?
Yes, and the bottom line below that,
In the COLA.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yep, mine is in that total bottom line, though.
Yeah, well, I realized down there, but I've just been up there in the regular salaries, and it
Yep,
kind of blew me away with
Yeah, those are the-
300,000.
those are contractual obligations.
What about your capital expenses? What are you looking for new toys?
This year we have a catch basin truck to replace one we lost last year. And we went a year to see how it would go, contracting those services out. And we're finding it very difficult to keep things.
Expensive, very expensive to hire those trucks,
And
Really?
very.
sometimes
With the side crane and the scooper, right?
correct. The expense and also the timeliness to try to get one, because sometimes it's not always on a planned maintenance schedule. Sometimes we may need one quick, sooner than later, if we get a deluge of rain or something, and to try to get them out just it didn't work out. So we're gonna buy a truck that we can use kind of multi-purpose.
Yeah, I remember something about that last year. It was gonna be multifunctional.
Yeah, and we're looking at on a 550 chassis with a plow. So it's another plow vehicle, backup.
Good.
Yep.
And if money were no object, what's the next thing? As far as equipment stuff goes, you guys adequately set up, or?
Equipment, I think we're in really good shape. I think maybe a couple more women or men on the force would be pretty good. 1 or 2 more people would be a big help. Maybe
Yeah.
one more machine operator, and another truck driver laborer, I think would be a huge help.
Yeah. And then on a wish list for the department, if on that end of things, a foreman on the maintenance side would be a huge asset. However it gets, if it's a foreman or to deal on the building side of things and the custodial side of things, another person in that position would be a huge asset.
So actually, ultimately, 3 guys. A machine operator, truck driver, laborer, and then a foreman for the maintenance side.
Yeah.
I think personally, the foreman for the maintenance side would probably come before the other 2 personnel.
Really?
I think so, only because on the town side, I have a foreman to lean on for most of my stuff. Dave doesn't really have anybody on the school side to lean on. If something comes up, Dave usually has to go, where if something comes up with me, I can call Chris and kind of delegate that work to him or whatever the emergency may be. So I think that would be a huge help for Dave.
You might want to consider trying to plug that into next year's budget, and let's see how the numbers look,
Okay.
you know? I still am in amazement when you see that we are 39 and a half square miles of town, and for the most part, it's a skeleton crew. I mean, honestly and truly, there's you 2 and 7, is that correct?
Well, there's
Or
totally,
you're 2 part of the 7?
well, there's 14 total in the whole contract now.
So that's including custodians
That's
and
including,
everything?
yep, that's
These
2
guys don't come out and
custodians.
trim trees?
There's only 6 guys on the road during the day.
That's it?
That's
Yeah.
it. 6 guys. So, and then if there's a fire, out of those 6, they, they're all volunteer firefighters.
4 of them are volunteer. That's awesome.
7 total out of the 14, including myself.
So, I mean, I think that, again, this goes back to, people talk about the cost of the living in the town of Carver, the taxes and so forth and so on. when you break down the individual departments and what they do and how they do it, we certainly should, at the very least, be grateful.
We have a good crew.
You know,
Good
that's,
crew of good dedicated men and women.
how many times have we all sat back and seen other towns, other cities, been on the highway with a state truck that's doing 11 miles an hour, the thing never saw the high side of 20 its entire life, it's loaded with guys and they're not going anywhere. I mean, we see this all the time, so we're pretty fortunate. At least it's my opinion.
Yeah, and we're fortunate as a department that we have your support and give us the equipment that we, request and say this is a necessity.
I would like to see you try to plug that foreman into next year's budget and see how those numbers come out. We can beat Michael up a little bit, not to worry too much about that.
Speaking of equipment, how's that new extra wide lawnmower? Was there a new lawnmower?
Good, yes.
How's that working
Yep,
out?
very well.
Yeah.
What used to, just taking the middle high school, that's 26 acres total, and 22 and a half of them are athletic fields.
Yep.
And that was pretty much almost a full-time job, just mowing that with a 60-inch mower. And that whole complex can be mowed now in a half a day.
Nice.
Yeah,
16 foot, 12 foot?
16.
16, yeah. Yeah, and we're using it on the street, and we can use it back here as well, because we're taking over maintenance of all the recreational
Right.
fields this year.
So one more thing for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, really, thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Chairman, these two guys in front of you, Mr. Humble and Mr. Humble 2, I'm not sure which one's 1 and 2, but they're very modest and, 14 people, including these two guys, half maintaining the buildings, half maintaining the streets. I mean, just as you said, it says an awful lot about this town. They don't complain. We give them the equipment they need, and they go out and do it, plus they're firemen at the same time. So the work they do just is commendable. And, when you hear all of this bad morale in the town and all these other Facebook posts, we don't know where it's coming from, because you've got great employees like these guys and their men and women working for them. They're just doing a phenomenal job because they care about the community. And, without their leadership, we wouldn't have this. And these are the guys that make it happen. Now, sometimes things, because we do a lot in-house, they sometimes may take a little bit longer, but we do it in the most cost-effective manner versus just spending your money on consultants and contractors to do stuff. That we figured out the most efficient and effective way to do it, and these guys are the boots on the ground making that happen. So you don't see all that stuff, but they're doing all of that project management on a daily basis, plus running the day-to-day operations of the town. And let's face it, this town has just gone through a huge building boom with the elementary school, the fire station, the new middle high school, the new sports field, the playground. Dave used to have a little bit more hair a few weeks ago, but as the spring's coming, he's got to get the turf down, because Adam's calling, when's my grass going down? And now we got the police station going, and soon after that, we're going to have to come back and do the library stuff. So there's a lot of work that goes on that these guys, people don't recognize. This is where it's happening. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Well, that's the reason that I say what I say, and that's the reason I give you guys a chance to say what you say, because this is stuff that doesn't get seen. It's very easy, and you read about it. You got a couple grumbled people who, the last snowstorm, God forbid, there was a quarter of an inch of snow in front of their house because the town didn't plow right. Why don't we look at what the town does, instead of trying to find a couple of things they didn't do? This stuff makes me crazy. So thank you for the job you guys do. I think you guys work hand in hand exceptionally well together. And that's obvious in the fact that you brought the office out of the basement, let John come upstairs, and you guys are in the same office now, which lets you...
Still kicking and screaming about that.
Oh, I'm sure. Which lets you share Carrie, which is excellent.
Yeah.
So, it just shows that you're pulling the same direction.
Yeah.
We have the same thing with the fire department and the police department. There's no rivalry. They pull in the same direction. And that's unheard of in a small town. It's always little fiefdoms. Who's in charge of what? This is my territory, not yours. And we don't have that here. So we're very fortunate that we don't have the rift with this town versus the school. And it works the way it works. So that's it. Anybody else? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the O and M budget for a total of $1,388,069. That's salaries and expenses.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the O and M budget to present to the select board.
To present to the select board.
It was seconded by George. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see those fields done.
Tell them when you get around to it.
April 1st. April 1st.
April 1st, yeah. That'll be your April Fool's present.
Joke's gonna be on you.
Yeah, that's it, it's gonna say. Okay, let's not waste too much time here on this, delaying this. Carver, Marion, couldn't anybody ever shorten this up? I can never get this right. CMWRRD, let's just do that. The trash. Gentlemen. Bill, you need to go up and sit with them.
Sure.
Mr. Belvin, Mr. Belvin emailed me. I've included that email in your packet. He was not able to make tonight's meeting, but he did, however, provide us with a detailed proposal, which I've shared with Mr. Carter, as well as I've given you guys the emails that were sent between me and Bob.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think we have this. Yeah, I think we have this in our packet. Michael had sent me this.
Thank you, sir.
Have to look at, it's on the last page of the, which I still can't read because I didn't bring glasses, but that's okay. I take it this is Jeff?
Yes, my name is Jeffrey Osich. I'm currently the Executive Director for the CMW since January of last year, so I've been around for about a year and have tried to assist the three towns in resolving some of the issues that they've been having, unfortunately, with the prior director and some of the other issues. And as time has progressed, the district is now having discussions of basically ceasing operation as we get to the end of 2020. Before going into that, I'd like to spend just a minute or two and just give folks a quick reminder of where the CMW has been since approximately 1983 is when CMAS came into the picture, and in your town, the Carver landfill, which was operated by the CMW, was taken over by CMAS, and since then they've been operating the landfill primarily for disposal of ash and some trash, most years well in excess of 250,000 tons a year. That landfill, under the current configuration, is closing at the end of this year, and CMAS is responsible for the closure plan and to manage the landfill in the future from engineering standpoint. Plus, there's an insurance policy, 3 10-year segments. We're in the middle of the first 10-year segment as surety on that landfill in case there is issues in the future with any type of leachate or any other incidents that may occur. Separate from that, since the agreement was worked out with CMAS, in addition to them operating the landfill, the three towns of Marion, Carver, and Wareham have benefited in the sense that the sheet that that John passed out that looks like this here is a representation of the actual tonnage that has been brought to CMAS in roughly the last 4 years, 16, 17, 18, 19, and I've included January of 20. The tonnage for Carver, Marion, Wareham is the actual tonnage that is picked up curbside by haulers, be it it's the homeowners' trash in the case of Carver and Wareham that have private haulers that do the curbside pickup or businesses within your community. In the case of Marion, it was done primarily by employees of the town of Marion until this past August when they hired Waste Management, and Waste Management is now doing all the collection curbside for the residents of the town of Marion. The Carver Marion Wareham District runs the Benson Brook Transfer Station, which is in Marion, and the Route 28 facility over here in Rochester, right over the Wareham line. The operational cost of the Route 28 station is the operator is CMAS, and they bear all of the expenses specific to that facility. In the case of the Benson Brook Transfer Station, the district does employ two individuals who are at the facility the days that it's opened. However, again, back to the original agreement back in the late 1980s, 83, I guess, the costs incurred by the district for the operation of Benson Brook is practically 100% reimbursed by CMAS. The exceptions are primarily legal expenses and things of that nature, which they will not reimburse for. So for the last 30-some-odd years, almost 37 years, the district has, and the three towns have basically been able to get rid of their trash for free. The only expenses the homeowner is borne in the case of the district has been the stickers that have been sold by the respective three towns, and the towns have kept the proceeds of those stickers. So all of that unfortunately ends at the end of this year. So at December 31st, CMAS is having a party, since that allows them to get out of the contract that expires. So the reality is, starting January 1st and going forward, Marion has signed a contract for trash collection to be disposed of at CMAS. It starts at just under $78 a ton, and will go up at 2.5% for the next 5 years, so from 21 through 24, that 5-year period. The district, if the district stayed in business, would also have that same contract, and the towns of Carver and Wareham, which have private haulers, potentially could have their own contract with CMAS, but where they don't control those haulers, that's an issue that would have to be resolved between CMAS and the town of Carver or the town of Wareham. I think what's important to see is when you start looking at the month-to-month and the totals of tonnage, you know, you can take any month here, but do the math quickly in your own head. If you were paying the total tonnage between the three towns and Benson Brook and Route 28 Transfer Station at $80 a ton, you can get a good feel for how much it's going to cost in the future to get rid of the trash if these volumes stay as they are. The question, I guess, in everybody's mind is what's going to happen on January 1st of '21. At the present time, the district has taken a vote to stop operations of both transfer stations on that date. So December 31st will be at the moment, will be the end of the two transfer stations. The town of Marion has expressed an interest in taking over the operations of the Benson Brook facility. We are not sure exactly what would happen with the Route 28 facility. So be it you're from Carver or from Wareham, who are the primary users of the facility on Route 28. And I should mention that Wareham, for the last year, I've been monitoring the tonnage at Benson Brook. We can keep track of what happens. I shouldn't say tonnage, but the number of vehicles, because there's no scale at either facility. I can tell you that approximately 67% of the vehicles going into Benson Brook come from the town of Wareham, and only approximately less than 1% comes from Carver. Now, for the 8 or 9 weeks that we did monitor Route 28 this past summer, CMAS will not give us a second person. Excuse me, they man it with one person, so they basically don't check the stickers or record anything. But for the 8 weeks that we did record, the ratio was roughly 66% was from Wareham going to Route 28, less than 1% from the town of Marion, and the other 28 to 30% was coming from Carver residents going to Route 28. So you can easily see people from Carver frequent primarily Route 28, and people from Marion basically are going to Benson Brook, where Wareham is almost an even split. If you just look at the bottom of that sheet, so if you look after December, and don't get confused, where I've written Benson Brook 12 months and then Route 28 12 months, the numbers you see there is the cumulative number for each of those years, 16, 17, 18, and 19, for the tons that are in the 12 months above. So, for example, Benson Brook in 19, only 2,573 tons was brought from Benson Brook to CMAS, while at the same time from Route 28, it was 5,200 tons, or a grand total of 7,840 tons. So don't, excuse me, don't get confused. This is strictly what the CMW is responsible for, is the two transfer stations, not the individual trash that comes from Wareham, Carver, or Marion. But you have all of the numbers for those 4 years on these sheets. You can see it's been fairly consistent the last 2 years, 7,800 tons, and prior to that, it was just under 7,600 tons. So the tonnage has gone up. One of the things I want you to notice is Route 28 is going up and Benson Brook is going down. And I think the primary reason is the fact that Benson Brook has people checking the vehicles coming in where Route 28 does not. And I'm afraid to say, I think there's a fair amount of vehicles and businesses, some of them, who may not be residents of any of those three towns.
I was going to ask that question because today I happened to be behind a pickup truck that was a roofing company, and they were pulling into Route 28. And I was curious as to how are they able to dump in there?
Well, unfortunately, if you...
I mean, it said roofing company right on the side of the truck, but they were heading into that landfill. Into that transfer station.
It's unfortunate because CMAS has allowed it. They're the day-to-day operators. They're the ones that maintain the facility. And of course, any trash that goes into the facility or any recyclables, sheetrock and the like, they dispose of, and they pay those costs. They're fully aware, and again, as I mentioned, I assume they're counting the days to December 31st. So that's just a quick summary of tonnage of the three towns in the district. This other sheet, which I know the numbers are small, unfortunately, because there's a larger spreadsheet, is a sheet that was put together by Mike Milanowski and myself back about 6 months ago, I believe. And I should mention that the district over the last year has swung in somewhat different directions. Initially, the discussion was about expanding Route 28, and I did do some outwork with the town of Rochester since it's located there, and the discussion was to close Benson Brook because the cost to run 2 transfer stations 5 days a week would have to be borne by the 3 communities or the residents of those communities. And I should mention, if there's any shortfall, if the operational expenses, then the 3 towns will bear the burden of the shortfall. What we tried to do here was the discussion swung to just operating one facility, and that one facility was going to be Route 28, primarily because the district owns the land that the facility is built on. The town of Marion actually owns the land at Benson Brook, and the agreement says that if it ceases to exist, then the land reverts back to the town of Marion. Also, Route 28 is a 10-acre site, maybe 3 acres or so, wetlands abutting primarily the entrance area, but the backland where there was some composting is dry, and obviously where the pavement is in the containers. So what we tried to do at that time, 6 months or so ago, was put together a rough budget of what we estimated would cost to operate one transfer station, and that would have been Route 28. So if you look quickly here, the numbers that were worked up, and again, it's difficult to come up with accurate numbers when you don't really know what's going on at 28, but if you look, we estimated that there would be probably $1.3 to $1.4 million in costs. The estimate at the bottom, and I apologize, the box is kind of shaded in gray on the copies you have, but the estimate was about 7,300 ton, which is about 540 ton less than what actually went in there in 19 between the 2 facilities. And again, when this spreadsheet was put together, it was basically estimated at $80 a ton. Since then, we've had negotiations with CMAS, and the contract would start just a couple of cents under $78 a ton. And as I said, it would be a 5-year contract if the district continued. You have costs for trash disposal, you have costs for recyclable materials, and most people don't realize this, but right now, for the recyclables that are being taken from Benson Brook, we're paying $117 a ton plus $110 per pull. So twice, 2 containers a week are picked up On average, it's $110 per pole, and then it's $117 per ton. So based on some numbers that CMAS gave me for their estimate of what happens at Route 28, plus the numbers we actually have for Benson Brook, the estimate was that we'd have approximately $120,000 and another $30,000 for the poles to dispose of the recyclables from one facility, assuming all 3 towns were hauling, our residents were going to that particular facility. So the number that was arrived at was approximately $300 per sticker if there was 4,602 stickers sold in a year to residents of the 3 towns. Now, that number is significantly lower than what's actually happening right now. We're probably, I'm guessing, somewhere around 12,000 stickers between the 3 towns, but primarily it's because if you're in Marion and the stickers were last year, not this year, but in 19, they were $20 or so a piece, and you own 3 cars, you got 3 stickers, and the same sticker got you into the beach. Wareham had a system where you could have a dual sticker or just a transfer, and you have it here. So the number is probably closer to 12,000, but in reality, if the fee goes up to pay for the cost of disposal, I guess best guesstimate, and this was based on looking at the peak month of July and seeing how many vehicles went in a given week to 28 and also to Benson Brook, which was roughly between the 2 facilities, that number of 4,600. Excuse me, if it was 4,600 and the system stayed basically the way it is today, you're looking at a $300 sticker per person or per vehicle.
And we don't, this is, and we don't even know that that's gonna be the right number.
We don't.
This is all stick numbers in a hat.
Right.
And I mean, even the best laid plans, this is still stick numbers in a hat.
Right.
Because we don't know the variables, and the variables are you gonna pay $300 for a sticker? And if you're not gonna pay $300 for a sticker, then you wanna buy one, it's gonna cost you now $310 because he didn't buy his.
Correct. So obviously, if you look on this sheet and you work your way to the right, it was taking the 4,600 and decreasing it by 10% per increment, and you can see in the kind of the darker box underneath that if you lost 10%, so if you only had 4,140 stickers sold, your fee would be approximately $322 per sticker and so forth if you work to the right. Obviously, if you sold more than $4,600, the cost per sticker would come down. The difficulty is it's impossible to know at this point. This is, as I mentioned, based on the highest week. Now, obviously, if you had 4,600 vehicles enter both facilities in the same week, was it 46 people making 1 trip? Was it 1 person making 5 trips? Who knows? Right. But our best guess is what you see on the sheet. This is based on keeping it the way it currently is, people coming in, disposing of whatever they bring from recyclables to trash and so forth, and disposing of that for the residents, with the trash would end up going to CMAS, and the recyclables would probably go through ABC like they currently are going. Other discussions that the district has had was, well, maybe we shouldn't have sticker fees that high, have a flat fee sticker somewhere in the 125 to 150 range, and then tell people that they have to buy the bags, as some towns have. So you'd have to go to the supermarket or the hardware store, buy a bag for whatever size bag you're buying. Probably a bright color, it could be orange or bright green or something like that for, $2 or $3 a bag, and that money most of it would come back to the district and be used to offset the cost of disposal of the trash, where the approximately $125, $135 sticker price would cover the operational expenses, which is the majority of the numbers you see on their sheet. Those are the discussions that took place over the summer months, and more recently with the town of Marion, having a town meeting in the early fall and asking to get out of the district, and actually taking a vote to get out. And if the town, or any town, wishes to get out of the district, it requires 2 town meeting votes. If one town decides to get out of the district, as Marion has proposed, then the district has to negotiate an exit plan and obviously cover the expenses and the liabilities. And just to dwell on that for a moment, the employees and past employees of the district are with the Plymouth County Retirement System. Actuarial report that we have for January 1st of 19 shows that the Again, you can't predict how long people will live, but based on actual data, that liability at the present time is approximately $430,000. Separate from that is insurance, Medicare, and so forth for those employees, and that's approximately another $150,000, is based on actuarial. Obviously, if somebody lives less, those costs go down. If they live longer, obviously the cost would go up. So that's a burden that remains with the district. The goal is to cover those expenses if the district decides to cease to exist after December 31st. As I mentioned, Marion's taken the first vote to get out of the district. They're pretty vehement on that move. The other two towns haven't taken action at this present time, but if two towns decide to leave, the district is basically non-existent at that point. So at the present time, there's been an agreement that's been worked upon and actually was voted at the last meeting that is going to be going to all three town meetings in April and May to revise the basic agreement, which basically would eliminate the district from running transfer stations. The district would still remain in a skeleton form with the responsibility of dealing with the liabilities. So any money that exists at the end of December that's in the bank would be used to pay off the liabilities such as pensions and health care and so forth that's required. And that burden wouldn't be on the backs of any of the three towns. So basically, that's about where we are at the present time. Depending on what happens at those town meetings, the agreement that's been recently worked out in all three towns, well, the majority of the members of the committee, two gentlemen to my right, and out of the three from your town, and three from Marion, and three from the town of Wareham, voted to close the district with a 5-3 vote, and more recently it was a 4-3 vote to adopt what is going to appear in your town meeting as a new agreement for the district going forward. And basically that agreement allows the towns to decide if they wish to acquire the property or equipment, it would be at appraised value, and separate from that, if and when the time comes to dissolve the district down the road, any assets would be distributed based on how much money people put in. There was $363,000 between the three towns that was put into the district 2 years or so ago, and the former director was fired and more recently passed on but was indicted. That money would go back proportionally based on what they put in. I can tell you Carver was, I think, $121,000, and any value that exists or money that exists after that was going to be equally split between the three towns. So that's, I guess, the nickel version at the moment.
In all fairness, Bob Belbin couldn't be here tonight because he's working, and we all have his proposal. Obviously, he's the don't close the district vote.
Right.
So, and we've heard quite a bit of that. John and Bill, I've spoken with Bill, but it's good to see you, John.
Nice to see you, and all of you.
John was on this committee for a long time, 12 years. Couldn't wait.
Yeah. Enjoyed every minute of it.
You can come back now. You've been gone long enough now. You know.
Just waiting for an opening.
There is. We have one.
Not getting donuts anymore for me.
Oh, he brought donuts? What do you think?
Well,
Where are you at?
well, let me just go.
We don't talk to you that often anymore. No disrespect, no disrespect to Bill. We hear from Bill all the time.
I'd just like to go back a little bit farther, not to 1983, but when I first came on this committee, we looked at, the first thing that was presented to me was a budget. It was in a Word document. It had 7 totals on it, and it didn't agree to the total for the document. So I knew we had a problem. And it was 4 months late. We were asked to vote on it that night. When you ask basic questions like tonnage, no one knew. When you ask basic questions, what's in our bank account, nobody knew. When you ask for a balance sheet for P&L, it didn't exist. So I just want to, give everybody credit. I mean, the 3 town administrators stepped up in the beginning to try to make sense out of it. We had selectmen from towns going in, looking through documents, all the vast warehouse of files that we have that didn't make any sense. It wasn't organized well enough. Tremendous amount of work was put in place. We had the town accountant from Marion, I think, was kind of acting as the accountant for the district for a while, trying to find out what was going on. It took a good, 6 months to a year to try to get, just bills separated between years. You had commingled years. You had no idea what their run rates were on costs. It was incredible. So what Jeff and his team have done, by putting together, these numbers aren't computer generated. These are by guys out in the field with clipboards, trying to count, the cars coming in. A lot of it's done manually. And just when we put this stuff together, we now have on QuickBooks, financials that have an actual budget. We can track it by month to find out where we are for the month, year to date. So I only say this because we do think we have a good handle on the costs, what it takes to run this district, money coming in, money going out, going forward. On Bob's document, again, in fairness to him, he should probably be here in order to, talk more about it, but some of the numbers, I don't know where they're exactly coming from, some of the assumptions. So I think maybe at a later time, we should, get together and find out exactly what's driving it. I think, off the top of my head, his operational costs look too low, but then his dumping costs seem too high. But that's just an overall general opinion.
I think the big problem is gonna be the tonnage and the number of users is all gonna be dependent upon the sticker.
Exactly. That's the thing we wrestle
You can't get
with.
to that number until you know how many users there's gonna be, and we don't know how many users there'll be until we know what the number's gonna be.
The 125 was more of a test to find out. This gives you, we have something like $670,000 in the account. Again, we should probably using that if we shut down the district to go and pay our liabilities. But the 125 would have probably given us another year to try to find out, what can we do with this district? Does the number of users automatically get reduced by 10%, 20%? Not at all. Somebody might turn around and say, if I'm going to pay $400 to $500 a year for a curbside pickup, I'll pay $125, I'll pay $250, but we don't know. So that's, as you said, we don't know what the effect's going to be on a price increase.
And that's the part that's scary, and I'm open to any ideas. I think this whole committee's open to any ideas that will work best for the town, but the thing that I think we all agree on is we don't want another North Carver Water District. We don't want to have the cost be $200 per sticker, and, oh, by the way, we're also gonna subsidize $200,000 out of the town budget to make the sticker cost work. And then have those of us that still have private trash pickup, and we're paying for that. Because at $10 a sticker, I don't go to the transfer station. At $200 a sticker, I won't get a sticker, because I have trash pickup, and that's my choice, and I pay for it, and I like that. I have enough to do without having to worry about a dump run every Saturday. That's just me personally. I know a lot of people that feel the same way. My next door neighbor, God bless him, every Saturday, he's on his way to the transfer station. I think that's great. That's just not what, I'm spoiled because I grew up in Weymouth. We had town trash. So when I came here, I just hired a trash contract. Pat?
Thank you guys for the great information. I do use the transfer station right now, and I like it. I get a senior sticker for $5, But the way I also look at it is, if this is gonna go up, and again, this is no criticism or whatever, but let's just look at it, put it in some simple forms. And as Alan already mentioned, and you've mentioned, it's gonna be, what's the price of the sticker gonna be? I think once it gets up to about 125 or 150, my thought would be, okay, it's gonna be 150, and then I go once a week, and there's $2.50 a week in a gallon of gas that I gotta go back and forth with. And then if there's gonna be a bag cost, it just puts it way out of reach. Now you're probably more than a commercial curbside or a private that you could get yourself. So I think the whole thing is gonna come down to what is the price of the sticker gonna be? And I think that's gonna gauge it, and, where's that bar, where's that point where you can go up to, and people are gonna say, okay, yeah, I'll still do that. And then, if you go beyond that, then, you're gonna lose a lot. So I think that comes down to basically what's the cost of the sticker, and it's gonna be something that's palatable, and it's I'd either continue it, or I would go to a private pickup.
Well, I think, it seems to me that the only way we're ever gonna know any of this is going to try to come up with some sort of a pilot program if we're gonna continue with some kind of a transfer station. Something that's not permanent, that's not long-term, that is, whether it's even a one-year lease on the existing one or whatever, and then it's gonna have to be a see what happens kind of a deal. Because there's no other way to enter into this without locking ourselves into something that we could potentially wind up regretting. I mean, am I off base? Am I wrong?
Well, I think, as I said...
And I don't know that a pilot program's even possible, but I couldn't see adopting it any other way.
With CMAS, end of life, I guess, 12/31, right? They're done, so would a pilot even be possible, or?
Well, obviously, two things.
Yeah.
At the moment, and the district has taken the position that they're going to cease operation of both facilities. So that again, is subject to town meeting action whenever your town meeting is. Yours is in April, and I think Marion is the last one in early May. Wareham, I think, is the last week of April. That's one issue. One of the issues, before I get to your question, I should mention is when you start talking costs, as I mentioned earlier, Route 28 is totally covered by CMAS. Their employee is there, their trucks do the hauling, they sweep the parking lot, they take care of everything.
So it's their compactor also?
Well, the equipment is ours. The compact is there. Unfortunately, the 3 compactors, 2 for trash, 1 for cardboard. It's a combination of baling wire and duct tape and so forth. It's going to last till December, one way or the other. CMAS will make sure it lasts. They certainly have highly qualified mechanics and other individuals working a quarter mile away to come back and keep it operational. Those can, other than maybe the cardboard one, the other 2 probably would have to be replaced. I have pricing for all of this because we talked about expanding that to additional containers if we close Benson Brook. I can tell you that for the current year, 2020, CMAS, which is part of Covanta, and you have to go through their home office, where CMAS has to submit to the home office or purchase orders to pay the district. I can tell you that those dollars that they projected based on what we spent last year, which they ran in the red, because I'll be honest, the prior administration didn't bill for everything that they should have. They budgeted approximately $860,000. Now, that's nothing to do with trash pricing, because they take the trash for free. But I'm talking to reimburse the district for its labor, benefits, insurance, and so forth. It's approximately $860,000, plus $80,000 for hazardous waste days. So this past year in 19, there were 3 hazardous days. 2 were held together. Carver and Marion were held together in November, and Wareham had one in June. They got deluged with people. Collectively, between the 3, we spent, the budget was 80. We spent $79,900 in change. Pure luck, because you don't know what people are going to bring, but when it was all tallied, including police, etc., it came out to $79,900. So they've budgeted $80,000 for next year. So when you start looking at just the cost factor, if they're budgeting $800,000 change to reimburse the district based on billing from 2019, and you then factor in whatever the tonnage is that would have to go, and that's running 1 transfer station, don't forget. I'm just talking cost of Benson Brook, and obviously insurance is for everything. But if the tonnage is 7,000 to 8,000 ton at roughly $80 a ton, you're talking another $560,000 to $600,000 on top of the 800. You're roughly at 1.4 million. We did this 6 months ago. That's the numbers. I can show you their purchase orders, because Covanta, the home office, because when we submit for reimbursement, we have to itemize everything. The board will be meeting Wednesday night. We'll sign off on the bills and the payroll. Those then go to CMAS. They have to approve them, and then they go to the home office at Covanta for reimbursement. They're approximately 2 months behind in reimbursing us. But that's the cost factor. So to get back to your question about a pilot operation, You probably could. We'd have to hire a contractor. Well, the question becomes, do you run one facility or do you run two? Do you run them 5 days a week like they're operating now, or do you run one on 3 days and the other at 2, or 4 and 3, or some combination? And these are questions that would have to be answered, because Benson Brook, if you've been there, they use trailer truck bodies, the live bottom trailers. The Haas is still there, Peterbilt, we're down to 1 truck now, the Mack is dead. We're using the Peterbilt, and Wareham has been kind enough when that has had mechanical problems to give us a Haas that they have. But the intent would be, if the district closes, that the trailers are rentals from Hale, and the Peterbilt and the backhoe and the other equipment that's there would be sold, and those assets would come back to the district. If you did a pilot, that's a question that I can't answer. And then, of course, obviously, the stickers that people are purchasing, which are now the bright orange ones, if you have one, and they're numerically in order, they're not issued Wareham or Carver or whatever, they're now a CMW sticker. I know whose sticker number is who, if the town who sells them gives me that information in numerical in order, so it's a lot easier than having the same number written by 3 different towns.
Right.
So if that was to continue, you'd have to come up with, what is the price going to be for a sticker? And what John alluded to earlier, the district intention back 3 or 4 months ago, before the stickers were going to be given to the towns, was the district was going to require a sticker fee of $125.
That was going to kind of be the pilot program, right then and there, to find out, can we
See
survive?
where that went.
Yes.
Unfortunately, not Carver, but another town, Wareham, objected, and it went to legal counsel, and it was determined that the district does not have the right to establish the sticker fee. The district only has the right to assess the towns. The towns can decide on how they want to cover those assessments. They could set the fee at any rate that they wish. So the flexibility that the district hoped to have, to be able to have a better understanding of how many people would be willing to pay $125, disappeared when the legal opinion said the district could not set the sticker fee. And obviously there's no assessment to the 3 towns in calendar 2020, because the costs are all being covered by CMAS. So those are questions, if the intent is to continue to operate after January 1st of '21, is the towns would have to either subsidize it through a town meeting vote, I guess, or set sticker fees at 50 or 100 or 200 or whatever they sell to offset whatever the estimate is. But if you take it right now, based on our best guess, what you have in front of you, I think, not that it's been officially voted by anybody, but it probably would be based on these numbers. And then the assessments would be based on a guesstimate of how many vehicles are coming. As I mentioned, Wareham is about 2/3, and then the other 2 towns are less. So if you got a roughly $4 million budget, assuming that, we would say to Wareham, you're 2/3 of that. You're round figures just under $1 million, and then Carver, you're X dollars, and Marion is Y. But Marion is definitely taking their second vote to get out. So it might be only 2 towns left come January 1st.
And will we still be able, if this were to be an agreement, would CMAS still take the trash, or does that have to be now shipped off to XYZ?
I've been able to sit down with CMAS, and we've been able to negotiate a contract. Board members have seen it, and it would have been signed by the district for 5 years at the same prices that I referenced earlier, $77 and change with a 2.5% escalator for 5 years. The issue is, if the district doesn't exist, why should CMAS sign a contract with the district?
So everything is a best guess and an I don't know.
Well, it's the best guess, and I don't know in the sense
Town
that...
meeting in Carver last year didn't even want the town to go out and find a preferred hall.
Investigate.
It was,
They didn't even want it to be investigated.
it was try to establish what the cost may be if we were to look at a preferred hauler. Not to choose to go with the preferred hauler, just what would the cost look like?
Mr. Melanot.
There's a lot of confusing information, because there's a lot of pieces that went into this. But you know, as John mentioned and Bill, and going back, you know, what's it, 3-4 years when this was in the red, this whole district, has been a lot of effort put into here. But here are some of the important things that you need to know. Number one is that Carver used to have our sticker fee was $20 for 2 years. Okay, so basically $10 a year. And with that, we sold 3,400 stickers. Okay, that's the numbers I just got from our health agent this morning. When we increased the rate from, in essence, $10 a year to $50 a year, we sold 2,000 stickers that year. That percentage deduction from going from 10 to 50 says a lot. And that's an important metric that we have to show that by raising the price, supply and demand, you raise the price and the demand goes down. Now, you raise it from 50 to 125, what is that number going to be? Is it going to go down another 40%? I don't know. Is it going to go down? Of course it's going to go down. We don't know what that number is going to be. So we also have another metric that our health agent put together, is that in 2018, about half the people in the community, half the households, had private pickup service. Alan, you mentioned you have it. A couple other people have that. Now, that doesn't include the cranberry growers that have their own family dumpster, and the 6 generations around them all bring their trash in and put in the dumpster that happens. That doesn't include the people in Carver that may have a business in another town that bring their garbage and throw it in their dumpster at work. So we don't know what the exact numbers are in Carver, but again, half have private service, and therefore, because we know the cranberry growers and others that bring trash out, less than half use the district. But what we do have with the district is when we actually use the numbers that Carver, people from Carver, that we have for a 7-week period, looking at both facilities, between 7 and 900 people, 980 people, between 7 and, let's call it 7 to 1,000 people, 700 to 1,000 people. With a clipboard, they were able to go out and say there's 7 to 1,000 people in Carver using the district over this 7-week period.
Well, we don't know how many of those were making 2 trips a week.
We don't. No, we don't. But again, that's a number. That's 700 to 1,000. So even if you take the 1,000, that's the max that are using it, even if you assume they're only using it 1 time a week.
Okay.
So then you get back into the numbers. 631.
6,301.
No, just for Carver.
Yeah, Carver only. Carver going to Route 28 was 6,301 for the 8-week period of May 15th through July 9th of 20.
Right, but the average was
Well, you have to divide by 8, so you're talking just under 8.
718.
No, those are people that didn't have stickers that try to get into Route 28. So
So-
it averaged just under 800, and at the same 8-week period, Benson Brook that I alluded to earlier had less than 1%. It was 121 vehicles that went to Benson Brook. So if you add those two together, it was 7,422 vehicles in 8 weeks.
7,400.
I'm sorry, 6,422.
So 6,400 divided by 8.
800 a week.
Okay, so you had 800, that's the average. Okay, so that's your number that you're looking for. Now again, that's at $50. You move that up to 125, that 800 is going to drop by some percent. That's the variable we don't know. When you look at the econometrics of running a transfer facility, there's the disposal of the material. That's the easy part, because you know that a 15-gallon bag is going to have a certain cubic footage. Within a dumpster, you can hold, pick a number, 1,000 of those bags. To dump that dumpster, based upon the tonnage, it's going to cost you $1,800 for the dumpster. And again, I'm just giving you order of magnitude, plus $200 to ship it and return it. So you're talking $2,000 a dumpster, you're talking $2 a bag. That's easy. That's a scalable thing. If people don't bring in as much garbage, you don't pay as much disposal costs. That's easy. That's the easy part, because that's just a size by the gallons, and then you assign the bag. But here's the hard part, because I've ran these facilities before in another town, is that the most difficult job that and we had our O&M department here, but they're not at a transfer station. They don't have one in town. Transfer stations, there's a lot of mean people that come there, unfortunately, and they're like, what do you mean I can't dump all this sheetrock? What do you mean I can't dump all this tile that I just ripped out of my bathroom, that you're gonna charge me by the ton for this? What do you mean? I pay taxes, I get this free. It gets into a confrontation. And if you're paying people $12, $14, $15 an hour, dump it. That's what Covanta's done. Just dump it. And they've said it, it's better for us so our employees don't have to deal with the hassle, just dump it. So what does this mean? Well, then you've got to have a high-paid employee that's going to be paid enough to give a crap and is going to say, no, you stop, or I'm going to call the police. But they're doing that on a constant basis. So then you get into your staffing component. And with your staffing, you got to have at least a high-paid individual that's going to have a management responsibility. And this isn't the $12 an hour guy. And that person's there, full-time, plus a second full-time, because they have to piggyback on each other. And then you need another at least 2 part-time people, maybe one-time part-time person, maybe 2, depending upon how that is, because there's going to be vacations and so forth. And then with that, you add on 40% for benefits, and because we're a public entity and our health care that we do and our OPED that we have to pay for, 40% surcharge on there is probably still even a light number that you're doing to that. And you start adding all these costs up. And again, going back to the old sheet, okay, if we have 800 people and our cost is going to be $1 million, then that's what the sticker price is going to be. But we also have examples in other towns where this has changed. In Plymouth, they used to have 3 transfer stations. Now, over time, people got a little lazy and wanted to have private pickups, so they stopped buying their sticker. And so what did Plymouth do? They raised the sticker price up because they had less people that are selling the stickers. It's an enterprise fund. It has to balance out. Well, sticker price went up. Getting closer to, this goes back 10 years ago when private pickup was easy. Forget it, I'm not going to go to the dump. Okay, I'm going to do private pickup. And that thing happened to a point where Plymouth had 3 transfer stations. They had to shut down 2 because they were subsidizing them from the town. Again, the North Carver Water District. To a point where, Plymouth has finally rebounded and is running their facility by selling it by the bag and selling it by the sticker fee, and they're able to run that. But they also have, 58,000 people? You got the economies of scale of doing that. With Carver and Wareham, there still isn't as many people in Plymouth to make that system work, and that's the risk that we have with all this, is that you can't come to any type of definitive estimate as to what the cost is going to be, so we don't have to look at halfway through the season and say, hey, we said we were going to sell 800 stickers, but only 300 people bought them, so now we need to come to the town for another $400,000 to make the budget work. Well, guess what? The town's budget's already set, everything's already moving. Then you get into the issue of trying to lay people off mid-year, and then we get into the whole point trying to balance a budget. So this whole thing, without having some definitive understanding of what the cost is, and the Board of Selectmen have been asking for 9 months for definitive cost estimates. We gave them this that was done before, and the numbers were questionable because we couldn't guarantee them. And we're still in the same position, no matter how many times we look at this. These 2 guys cannot get up here and guarantee anybody here or at town meeting that we can make this work and there's not going to be a cost overrun and we're going to sell enough stickers to make it work. And that's the position that we're in, is that there's too many variables and you can't control it because our economies are too small. The number of people that are interested are too small. It's easy to say, oh, we can sell a sticker for $100 and we're going to sell more stickers because it's $100. But what guarantee do you have? And that's where you're at right now. And it's a policy decision to some extent. I will say 2 other things. One is that the district, as Jeff said, voted to close the district. There's no pilot program that can be done right now unless the district votes. Town meeting can't tell the district what to do. It's up to the district to determine if they're going to do a pilot program. They did want to do that. It was, nixed by Wareham. And so, now we're in a position where the district, knowing that if any future liability happens, each one of the towns have to cover that future liability. So that's why the vote was 5-3 to close it down, and then another vote of 4-3 to move forward with the new agreement. Now, the new agreement, as Jeff said, just says we're not going to run a transfer facility anymore, and we want all 3 towns to agree with that. There's going to be a second vote on the warrant that's proposed, and that is to follow the Marion example. If you're going to leave the district, you have to take the 2-vote process, as Jeff mentioned. Marion's taken the first vote. They do not intend on taking the second vote, subject to this new management agreement being approved. Because if the new management agreement's being approved, then the 3 towns are telling the district, you cannot operate a district in the future, and therefore the 3 towns are protected from 9 people adding on millions of dollars to the cost to each one of the towns. And I'm proposing that Carver also takes the same vote as Marion did. It's our leverage. That if Marion and Carver are in the same position, we don't want this future liability, and Wareham decides to play some games, well, then you've got 2 votes to 1 to try to figure out what the best solution is. But if Carver doesn't take that position, and Marion, who stated that they are going to try to not vote for it, then we have a problem. And this is the predicament that we're in. And again, it all comes back to numbers, it all comes back to assumptions. Everyone here is telling you we can't guarantee how many people are going to buy stickers. And if anybody says they know what it is, God love them. And I hope they're willing to back it up with their own financial backing for it. And I don't think they're willing to.
Yeah, I think one of the things that frightens me about all these assumptions, we as a community can love the idea of a transfer station, want it. Of our 1,900 that were sold in 2019, we might get, I think we've sold less than 1,500 so far this year, because I just got mine last week and I'm like 1,470.
Yep.
So we haven't even sold the 1,900 that we sold last year, and it's only $10.
Yep.
But hopefully people aren't stockpiling trash since January 1st, waiting to get a transfer sticker in March. But we as a community, if we decide to buy 1,500 stickers next year, that's great. That doesn't mean Wareham's going to do the same thing with the same frequency that they do, and they're twice as big as we are. So if we drop 500, they drop 1,000, it's a much more significant impact to the overall number. And I think, you know, we can all sort of theorize and try to predict what's going to happen for Carver. It only tells a third of the story. It doesn't tell the whole story, and so 6,900 stickers could quickly become 2,000 stickers. And to your point earlier, Michael, about the compounding effect of dropping sticker buyers, you know, when you, and Alan said the same thing, when it's 300 and you drop 100 people and it becomes 310, you then lose more and more. It's a compounding issue that continues to get worse. It's more and more water building up behind the dam, and eventually the dam's just going to break. It's just, for me, I'm not comfortable telling my friends and family and, you know, members of the community, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. Because there's just not enough information right now for me to sit at town meeting and say, hey, I think we should vote to keep the district open, and, you know, whatever. And a lot of the questions that I have sitting here, and maybe people will at home, is understanding better. I touched on it briefly at the last meeting, but understanding better the dynamic between the district and what the district controls. The 9 members that make up the district committee control versus what the town controls. And what options we have. What are the impacts to, you know, doing nothing? What are the impacts to taking a yes vote or a no vote at town meeting? And how all that transpires. Because what I would hate to see is a situation where Marion leaves the district, it's now Wareham and Carver, and Wareham has 5 votes and we have 4. You know, we essentially don't control our own destiny. So how does that work?
Sure. So on the district right now, there are 9 members. Each town has 3 members, so it's equally divided by a third. Having said that, is that some towns pay in a little bit more based upon their population or the equalized value, which was a formula that's built into the old agreement from 40 years ago, 30 years ago. As far as power and authority, the town of Carver, the town meeting in Carver, has no authority over what the district does. Those 9 members can go out and issue a bond next week for whatever amount they want to, if they were going to make improvements to the district. And if they couldn't pay the note of that bond off, then the towns have to pick up that debt structure based upon a formula that's built into there that those 9 people can do. Now, The good news here is that through the work of these two gentlemen, and then when Jeff came in and work of the other town administrators, is we took an organization that was in the red, and at the end of this calendar year, we will have well over $1 million in the account. Now, that sounds like a lot, but we also have an OPEB and pension liability that's out there for those employees that we want to budget, and there's different numbers on that, but that's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's the ongoing requirement for managing the landfill for the next 30 years till it closes out. We have insurance on that to cover the post-monitoring reports on that. But what does DEP do? They change the rules. We're dealing with that with a water issue in town. We're going to be dealing that with another water issue in town that they're going to change the rules. So the town administrator's position is, let's leave the money in there in the district. Again, they can't spend any more capital costs with this new management agreement that's being sent to the towns. And then we have that money that's set aside in case there is an issue until we can go through a couple years of closure and make sure that we have fully understood all of the costs that are there. The agreement that's being sent to the town will limit the authority of those 9 people to run a transfer facility in the future. It will limit their ability to go out and bonding money unless they get the selectmen's approval in each 3 towns. So it takes the power away of 9 individuals to, at their own discretion, increased expenses to the towns that the towns would have to pay for. And again, that is based upon a 3 and 3 and 3 vote. Marion is, again, not leaving the district. They took their first vote, which is, I'm going to enter the game to negotiate. After I've negotiated something, then if I like the negotiation, I can bring it back to the town and have that approve it. But if I like this new agreement that protects us, which is why I and they have been working on this, I don't need to take that second vote. The first vote just gives us an option to play. And that's what I'm proposing Carver do as well, just like Marion.
So the management agreement then is a warrant article for town meeting this year?
Correct.
If it gets voted down, what happens?
So the warrant article needs to be approved by all 3 towns in the same format. If it gets voted down by any one of the towns, okay, 2 towns approve it, 1 votes it down, the 9 members have the authority of bonding and building anything they want regarding a transfer facility. And the towns can't stop them.
It scares the daylights out of me.
Same thing here, and that's how we got into this position, and why we have 2 litigations that were going on, because people were stealing money. And the town administrator said, enough, stop. This is what we need to do. We can't let this power be put into 9 individuals without a check and balance. And there has been no check and balance until the new members were appointed and Jeff came on board. Now there's a check and balance that's in there. And we've been able to recoup some of the money, and if we win some of the lawsuits, we'll recoup some more money. But we stopped the bleeding, we stopped the theft, we stopped the illegal expenditures, and now we're looking to learn from this and not make the same mistake again. And I, as you know, for the last 6 years, been focused on finances, and you know, we've done a lot in this town, but everything's been documented that we can make it work. We have a plan, we have policies, we can live within our means. This is something that we just don't know. We just don't know. And what we haven't talked about tonight is recycling, okay? Trash is easy. $78 a ton plus 2.5% for the next 3 years. Okay, we know what that number is. Some places are paying $100 a ton. Okay, we know what that number is. But you used to have all the plastic bottles, all the newspaper, all that stuff was a commodity. You could sell that, and if nothing else, you paid for your labor expenses of putting it all there in the equipment. Now you're paying the same value as trash to dispose of that, with the exception of steel and metal, is that with this transfer facility, it will have recyclables. The recyclables also need to be put into the calculation. Is that on the garbage bag side or is that on the sticker side? No matter what, it's a large expense that's going to be coming in there, and no one wants the recyclables right now. Now, we're hoping that's going to change in 3, 4, 5 years after we get past this China issue, which is a long story. And Al Gore comes back and helps with some solutions, Bill. You know I get that in every time I can. I know. But that's a huge variable we haven't even talked about, it's another unknown. It's as big of an unknown as it is how many people are gonna buy stickers at 125 or 250 or whatever the number is. I know, Bill, you wanted to say something.
Well, I'm just thinking of hearing all of this for the last couple of years that we've been doing it, and Mike has reiterated the complexity of the whole thing, and I don't think that the town should have anything to do with the trash disposal or transfer stations or anything else. That's where I come from. There's a privately run facility over at ABC, and being a contractor, I have waste, I do a job at your house, there's waste, and I can take it over there. They weigh me in, they weigh me out, I pay. And a lot of the trucks that come in there, I've got household waste too, I think they're dropping the stuff off there. What he does with that, some of it's going back to New Bedford. In my mind, and I would, if I had the money, put my money where the mouth is and not expect the taxpayers to do it, is have a facility where anybody can go in, you weigh it in, you weigh it out, and you pay. So you want to pay less, and maybe, I don't know what, I haven't stopped there yet to ask them what the minimum amount is. I think I paid $50 last time I went in, and I just had a small pickup truck, so I don't know whether that's the minimum that you have to pay, but that's...
But they take everything, because I've gone in there with pressure treated.
Yep. Oh, they take everything, yeah.
Back in
Yeah.
the building, the dump trailer goes up in the air, it all comes out on the floor, I write them a check for $85 on the way out the door, and we're done.
Yeah, and I don't think that they would have a problem. I haven't asked them if, Pat decided to take trash and that would be the place to go. You just, maybe you collect neighbor's trash and you split the cost. If it's $50, you're still under 25 apiece. They're not asking. They're not looking for stickers. They're not asking who you are or anything else. So, but the complexity of what I probably know by now. I get lost in all that, and I try and keep it as simple as possible. And nothing more simple than drive in, sit on the scale, and then I pay when I leave. I get out of the truck and I pay. But you could do it with credit cards. We've had people come and talk about photographing the cars and doing it with a card and license plate reading. And when he publishes Clearinghouse and I have the money, and I'll open up a more
We'll look forward to that.
convenient place.
Let me know when Ed shows up at the
I
door.
won't live long enough to have that kind of money, but
Middleborough put $60 a quarter on the water bill for every household. So that's $240 a year. And then if the enterprise account runs short, it's subsidized like we subsidize North Carver. So I think these
They own the
100...
landfill.
I'm sorry? And I was just gonna say, and they own the landfill. I mean, that stuff stays in town, and that's what it costs.
So think about that, that's just the contract for waste management to pick up the stuff curbside.
Take it to their own landfill.
And then
No, it's their own trucks.
All right, so their own
They
truck.
bought 3 of their own trucks from me in 4 or something.
But that's just the
And
transfer.
then there's town employees, OPEB, retirement, maintenance, every time you turn around, one of those trash trucks is back in Peterbilt because it breaks down. So, I have a hard time convincing myself that the $125 number is gonna work.
Well, under this scenario, at 1.4 million, if all 6,900 sticker holders go get stickers, it's $200 a sticker holder. I cannot, for the life of me, look at these figures and comprehend a scenario where we could move forward with keeping the district open.
The 125 was a subsidized number we were going to do for this coming year using some of the surpluses we have. So the 125 was a purely subsidized number.
Based on these assumptions and these operating costs, it's $200 a person, $200 a sticker. I mean,
Before you get into bags.
before you get into anything else.
It would definitely
And
work
that's the-
out on the funds that we have in place right now. But the idea was to find out, was 125 a deal breaker for people that were going to continue with the...
Sure. And then to that point, 200 would be, who knows what that
And
threshold
then we
is.
gotta go buy bags?
Yeah.
We don't have enough to do. So now we're gonna go buy bags.
And then you have the administrative process of the bags, because now you got to buy the Shaws, have the money set, somebody has to maintain the funds, and then the Carver, the district, there's a whole nother layer.
You got a double bag, because you got to use the color bag with the name of the town on it, And then you got to double the bag inside of there, so you're dealing with that issue. You're also, let's look at the big numbers here, though, is that trash is an important issue in everybody's lives. It's going to become worse and worse with what's happening with recycling. You need to really plan in your lifestyle that you're going to be spending $10 a week on garbage. Maybe it's $8, maybe it's $7, but for budget stuff, it's going to be $8 to $10. That's just what it's going to be. Whether you're doing it private, whether you're paying $200 plus buying a $2 a bag, but if you got a family of 4, you're buying 3 bags, so it's $6 plus your $200 amortized over, which is what, $200 is $8 a week plus $6 a bag, you're $14 a bag. It's cheaper for private hauler service when you start to look at it that way.
More money than private.
Right, but keep in mind, we need to look at options, and that's one of the things that that the selectmen have been doing and I've been doing, is that we don't think that Carver in Wareham is large enough to operate our own transfer facility. Wareham knows that. They know they're not big enough to operate it, so they're hoping for Carver to join them to help subsidize some of that cost. So what I've been doing is talking to other towns that have transfer stations and trying to figure out, will they sell stickers to out-of-town people to come in and use their transfer stations? And 2 of them have shown positive responses for this. And think about it. They already have the staff there based upon their sticker number. The bag's going to cover the disposal cost. So if they can get in economies of scale and sell it to an extra 100 people from Carver that has to follow their rules, that's just free money for their town to keep their rates lower, that their annual sticker fee won't have to go up. So that's an option that we're looking at too, is to deal with that. Also talking to some of the large waste haulers and seeing, what they would give Carver for a rate for new signups. And we've got a couple people that have said we'll give 1 month or 2 months free rent plus a barrel or 2 and stuff like that, and we're trying to play that on. We want to find solutions for people because private hauler's not the best solution for everybody, but our data shows that we don't have the majority of the people in the town that we should be taking this risk for to subsidize out of our tax levy transfer facility in the future, given our size, given the risks that are there, giving all those things. And that's the position that I've been explaining to everybody, is the numbers just aren't there. If we want to do it out of the kindness of our heart, we don't care about money, make everybody happy. Let's leave it at the private sector.
Well, you said $8 a week. I'm paying 10 a week now, and doesn't matter what I put out, they take it. I don't get overcharged. They don't charge me for excess. There's an office chair sitting out there. That'll be gone tomorrow when they come, where they stuff it in the compactor, I don't know, nor do I care. But I pay my $10. It's $500 a year. It's the way it is.
And if you're in any of the villages, you have private pickup anyway, for the whole village. Yeah.
So, this was never designed tonight. There's no vote. There's no... I just think that as a finance committee, we're gonna end up having to deal with this. So, we might as well get a little bit more on board. We've heard so many scare tactics between social media and we obviously know where Mr. Belvin stands, because he wants this transfer station to stay open, and we've really not heard the other side of the coin. So we were trying to get some balance to figure out what may be down the road going forward. And all we've learned tonight is pretty much what we've already all talked about, is that we don't know what we don't know. We don't. We can throw numbers up in the air, and, whatever comes down with the number facing up can be the starting point. But
Well, I think you know a lot. I think you have the formula. And I think when you plug in the numbers in the formula doesn't come out to something that's positive.
no, it doesn't. But we don't have we don't know the accurate, solid, the whole variable is who's taking part in it. And then that's really the big question. Does the finance committee want to support the town supporting the shortfall? Is really how it boils down. Do we want to recommend the town meeting pick up the tab for the shortfall if these things don't work out the way they work out?
One other thing I thought of the other day when I bought my sticker, hindsight being 2020, obviously, and I don't know if there's other opportunities with other things that the town hall handles, but when somebody comes in to pay for that sticker, asking a few questions and getting some information and keeping a database of the information, I think would probably pay dividends down the road. Finding out who buying a sticker, whether they have a private hauler as well, like I do. I pay somebody to come pick up my trash. I get the sticker because it's inexpensive and convenient when I have excess trash. That's why I have it. But questions like if you have a private hauler, maybe even what you pay for them, if they're willing to provide that information or not. Do you use, hazardous waste day? Do you go? These sorts of things. Do you recycle? Qualitative and quantitative information that is asked or requested when you purchase that sticker. Again, it's not going to help us going for next year, but down the road, that doing that type of due diligence, I think would be really helpful long term to prepare ourselves better for this type of stuff.
So
because we would have a better idea as to what Carver is doing in this situation, and understand better the impact of making these price adjustments. Because we'd have a better idea if we knew that of the 1,900 stickers sold, that 1,200 of them have their own private hauler. I think that would really shine some light on what the end result's going to be when this sticker price is.
Do you think a lot of the stickers are just bought to use the beach and have nothing to do?
Well, I mean, certainly in Marion, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Rochester too, because they get the same beaches down in Marion for doing that, and Wareham as well, I believe. In Carver, I don't know how many it is, maybe it's 100, I'm just throwing a number out, maybe it's 150. I don't know if you got a boat and you want to be able to use the beach down there. But to Adam's point is that when the district was looking to subsidize and test this out this year, is we went forward and actually purchased stickers that have barcodes on it, that we could have bought a scanner and scanned people in there, so we could really figure that out. When the stickers are bought, they take your name, address, and they have that information on the sheet you have. We were going to put that into a database and be able to compare and contrast. We can also then go to the haulers and get the address of everybody they pick up. So you could narrow that down. But when the district as a whole said, you know what, we're afraid of ourselves, we're going to vote not to do trash anymore, then at that point, we didn't do any more work in that because we said, okay, the district is no longer going to operate a facility. So we have the raw data. The issue is we don't have the staff time to process all that information. It could be done, and I don't think it would cost more than a few $1,000s to have extra staff time come in and put that all into a spreadsheet and be able to cross-reference all that stuff. But it just would take somebody, a couple hundred hours to input all that information in there, and we just made a decision not to do that. Now, if the finance committee thinks that that's a good decision and you want us to process that data, we've got the raw data to do if you think that that's going to help the analysis. That's kind of your call at that point. So we have the availability to do it. It's up to you guys whether or not you want to do it. We haven't thought it was necessary because the district says we're going to close. And we have yet to get an argument that shows there's going to be the numbers to make it work.
Just,
Go ahead.
I was going to say just one number that if you want to jot it down, you can. I mentioned earlier that Benson Brook, I have data since the first week I started, which was the week of January 11th of 19. So I've got 50, probably closer to 60 weeks of every vehicle that went in there. Route 28, of course, I mentioned, is operated by CMAS except for an 8-week period. Actually, it's 10. We do have an isolated week in August and an isolated week in September. And I should mention, I convinced CMAS that it was in their best interest to pay for the security company, which started out as a 3-week study and ended up being 8 consecutive weeks and then 2 additional. So we actually have 10 weeks. But the 8-week period of May 15th through July 9th, between the two facilities combined, and as I mentioned, Wareham at Route 28 was 65% of the vehicles, and at Benson Brook was 66 for those 8 weeks. But the total, and I should say Rochester gets in to either transfer station free at the present time because that's part of their host agreement with CMAS for the plant in CMAS. once the deal is over, if the district was running a transfer station at that point, Rochester would have to pay a fee per sticker. That terminates with that too, because that's been brought up. Without Rochester, for that 8-week period, Wareham was 67.79% of the vehicles, Marion was 13.28% of the vehicles, and Carver was 18.93%. And that is, for round figures, 34,396 trips. So, one of the gentlemen mentioned the population. Wareham, we know, is about 23,000. Carver's about 11 and change. You can easily see that Wareham at 67% and Carver at roughly 19%, that there's a lot more residents from Wareham that either don't have any curbside pickup than in Carver. And the other thing that's kind of surprising when you think of the numbers is that Marion, which only has about 5,500 people, I think, something like that, that they were over 13% of the volume for that 8 weeks. Now, I realize in the summer, they buy stickers, the summer residents, they have a discount program for so many weeks and so forth, so that might help inflate that, because it was May 15th through June 9th when the security company was there for 8 consecutive weeks. But it gives you a kind of conceptual idea what percentage of the roughly 35,000 vehicles that went in there. And the only thing we can count is vehicles. People keep asking me, well, how many tons? How many tons? Your guess is as good as mine, you know. I see ladies, little old ladies coming in with a bag, and they come in to socialize with the guys that work at Benson Brook twice and 3 times a week. That's God's honest truth. I see pickup trucks come in there that are overloaded, so you know they're not coming from their home. They're probably one of those guys that advertises, I'll clean your cellar out. That's reality. But that's the number of vehicles that we counted at both facilities over that 8-week period. Just approximately 35,000 and change. That's over 4,400 a week, roughly. And that's peak season. That's June, July, May, June, mid-May, then mid-June, July, I'm sorry.
Just to sum it up, I think if you go forward, you don't know, if this district continues, you don't know what the board's gonna look like, because we're not gonna be on it forever. The 9 members are gonna change, and they'll have a certain amount of control over spending going forward. If you think that it needs to exist, it's gonna cost you money. It's gonna cost each town assessment, no doubt. It's not gonna survive on its own. We can look at many different pro formas and what-if scenarios, but it's basically gonna be a cost the town will have to, pay for residents in order to have this type of transfer station. I know, looking at Bob's memo, I mean, he believes in the transfer station and what it does. It also helps people that can't afford a haul. And one of the big questions is, should the town subsidize that?
I want to make,
Alan, just 2 quick things.
ahead.
I do think it's important for you guys to listen to Bob, and, obviously couldn't make it tonight, but see if you can schedule another meeting so you can hear his perspective. He's an advocate for what he believes in. Again, we're just trying to get the numbers to back that up. The last point that I'll leave you with is, after the last vote to approve the new management agreement that restricts the powers of the district, and again, that was approved through a democratic process by the majority of the 9 members. The members that were on the minority at that meeting says, well, we can always revote this when we change the members. And Bill's been lobbied by them to get him to change his vote, and that, my antennas go up because we've dealt with the theft of this whole thing before this happened. When I hear stuff like that, it makes me just nervous.
And the town meeting vote will codify that.
If all 3 towns approve it. If 2 of the towns approve it, we need the hammer for just Marion and Carver making that happen. Yes?
You answered my question. I was going to say, if it doesn't pass in all 3 towns, what's our recourse? We have to vote twice to withdraw ourselves from the district?
Well, I think if you have both Marion and Carver having the ability to negotiate it out, a district can't survive unless it's 2 communities. Yep. So in essence, the 2 communities could dissolve the district without Wareham's support, because they wouldn't have a choice. So it gives us leverage from a negotiating standpoint. And that's my when I heard that statement, I said, we need to go forward with this second vote, just to have that ability. Yep.
in order to be fair, Gail, you wanted to say something? I'd be more than happy to let you.
Okay, thank you.
Here, Gail, come on up.
I
didn't have any questions when I first came in here because I needed to hear the discussion to get the questions, so now I have them. I'll start with my last question. Will you be discussing this again before it goes to town meeting? The Finance Committee, will you?
Most likely, if we can, I think the issue tonight was that Bob's gonna have a problem with Mondays, so perhaps we can schedule a meeting sometime in March. Town meeting's April 14th, so there'll be always that meeting just before town meeting for the last minute stuff, but perhaps the last meeting in March, we can try to just,
Our joint meeting with the select board is March 3rd, which is a Tuesday.
right, but then there should be another meeting. We should plan on a FinCom meeting 2 weeks from then.
Could we ask him to comment at the joint meeting, since he is a member of the select board?
Yeah,
It'll
if
be
we-
on the warrant, and that'll be also part of that meeting on the
Yeah.
2, presentation of the warrant, which has the 2 articles.
So we can
I
get
think at a
some-
bare
So I
minimum,
think
we
the
should
yes
ask.
question is, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
good, because after hearing this tonight, I'm sure people that see this on TV and know about it, they'll have questions as well. I like going to the dump, but after hearing tonight, it does sound a little shaky. But what I don't like is the idea of giving up a freedom, and that is, I wrote this down, let's see now, will trash haul, because I don't do trash haulers, pickup. Will trash haulers take the debris from gutting a bedroom? Can you put that heap on the curbside? This is what we can go into with the dump. Do I need my own dumpster for bigger projects, or will the trash haulers take what I could have taken to the dump in my car? Maybe a few days in a row, but your price is $520 a month.
A year.
I mean, sorry, a year. It was $52.
$10 a week.
$10 a week, sorry,
$10 a-
okay.
$5.20.
I'm glad I wrote this down because, thanks for helping me. Anyway, so it's $520 now. If the people that pick up the trash get wind of our situation, we're kind of vulnerable. And supply and demand, $520 now, they'll probably raise it, so I'm not saying I advocate the dump, but if I put stuff on the curbside and I'm paying from what I'm used to, which is zero, to just drive to the dump, and then $520, and I'm not able to get rid of stuff if I want to, the way I've been doing, I've given up a lot. So that's my opinion, and that's what I'm dealing with.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with you as far as, this is why I was so vocal at town meeting about not having a preferred single trash hauler that would be billed to the town, then we'd get whacked on our quarterly tax bill or however it got done, because that's always a honeymoon deal. And then somewhere along the line, the honeymoon's not the honeymoon anymore. And now the little guys, i.e. Plymouth Rock and even Nauset, they've been put out of business, and now there's only one guy, and now there's no competition. And that's what I don't want to see happen, because you're right. At that point, it could become, you don't have a dump, you don't have a transfer station, and we're the only ones that can haul it for you, so our new rate is now $1,200 a year. And that's when, you start seeing the town dumpster get overflowing, because people aren't gonna pay it. So that's why I wanted the competition. As long as there's competition, there will always be competitive rates. When there's no more competition, there's no need to be competitive.
I think your concern about the 520 going to 700 is a realistic concern.
Sure.
But I also think that the 6, 7, 8 private haulers that we have in town, that we all have an option to choose from, will all compete for that business and keep that price down. In some ways, it might actually lower trash, because if you've got a substantial portion of the 1,900 people buying stickers that don't have a private hauler, let's say it's 1,000, let's say it's roughly half, don't have a private hauler. Now you've got 1,000 new customers in the town of Carver. That could potentially lower the cost for private haulers in town because they've got more homes to visit. When they're driving through the neighborhood, they're picking up from 10 people instead of 3.
And the
I think it's a pie in the sky viewpoint. It's probably not going to
I don't
happen.
think it is.
But it could.
I don't think it is.
We don't know
because
yet.
the only increase in cost they're gonna have is the dumping fee.
Yep.
They're not gonna, if they're driving by your house, it's not gonna cost them really more than a minute of their man-hour time to stop and pick up your barrel and then move on to the next house.
And it's true, when you live in I lived in a subdivision, and the cheapest hauler I could find was the hauler that every one of my neighbors were using, because he was gonna give me the best price, because he's already driving by my house.
True. But what would happen if I did want to do some renovation? Could I,
There's always gonna be a limit on what you can put out at the curb and how much they're gonna pick up.
did they tell you that?
The ABC, the place in Rochester, will take any, construction debris.
But you'll pay over the scale.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's one of the things too that everybody's got to realize. We're going to be paying, there's no more free rides.
But that station will probably stay open, and I've used it before too. I mean, it's a godsend.
Yeah, he's handling trash from all the Cape and everything.
And I don't think the general public knows it's there and that it's available, folks. It's right across from the Rochester
I
Transfer.
don't know,
You can see
I
it
haven't talked
off
to
the
him.
exit.
I haven't talked to him whether, in light of the transfer station closing, is it okay if just citizens come in, I take just my construction.
I've gone
Well, it
before.
is.
I've gone before as a citizen with my pickup truck, and they took everything, and
Yeah.
Yeah, and they.
we're happy to do so because I wrote them a
Because
check.
They're taking it anyhow.
Yep.
Yep.
And they'll take a check. And it may even be worthwhile for the town to approach them and see if, we can get, I think their fee's like $140 a ton for the general public to come over that scale. Like there's a minimum $50 or something like that. So perhaps the town could look at them and work something out for a scale fee for that, for those demolition projects and so forth and so on. I went there a couple times last year because we had PT from doing the deck. We were replacing some of the deck. So what I had torn off was pressure treated, and you can't get rid of pressure treated. They took it, no problem at all, but I paid.
Two things that I don't want you to lose track of. Number one, any of the private haulers are going to have to pay CMAS or some other facility to take the trash that they're picking up. Right now, anybody that has trash, private hauler, 5 or 6 different contractors in your town or Wareham, go to CMAS, say, we're coming from Wareham, we're coming from Carver, they dump. That's the tonnage number I gave you. They're getting in for free. So if they're charging you $500 just using your number, next year, if it's the same hauler and he's hauling to CMAS, they're gonna have to negotiate with CMAS. It could be the same, could be $80 a ton, could be $90 a ton. They're gonna have to factor that into the rate structure. One thing I think that I have to say, and it's going back to the tonnage numbers. If you remember on the bottom of that 12-month ton sheet, I showed you Benson Brook was down and Route 20 was up, but when you look at the totals for last year, 18 against 19, the total is almost identical. The district did come up with a handout, which is posted on, I think, every town's webpage site, that limits, and the permit that's issued by DEP for both facilities is supposed to be for residential trash only. It's not supposed to be for demo. So if you're gonna gut your house, yes, I'm telling you right now, you can look on Facebook, you can look anywhere, they'll tell you, don't go to Benson Brook, go to Wareham. I'm sorry, go to Route 28, which is in Rochester, because you can get in there because nobody asks you any questions. You can't get turned away. The reality is, if the district is running, if the district existed to run transfer stations, a lot of that stuff that's going into Route 28 today would be stopped. And that goes back to what I think Mike was alluding to earlier, saying, yeah, you're not gonna do it with a person getting paid $12 or $14, $15 an hour, because they're not gonna take the grief. Or in the case of what I was told by CMAS, and this it supposedly is a true story, that an employee of theirs was threatened by a woman with a knife because he was told to tell her, not to, her, meaning anybody that was bringing in demo debris, and at that point they said it wasn't worth the effort. So that's a story, I can't tell if it's true or false, but that's what I've been told. So the point I'm making is there are new rules, they're supposed to have been implemented this year. It's very difficult to implement it if you're not enforcing it. So demo debris is not something that's supposed to be going into either transfer station.
Gail, were you all set?
Yes, thank you.
You didn't have to leave. I didn't know if you were done. So you're all good?
Thanks.
Donna?
I have just a quick question.
I hope so. There's no such thing as a quick question with Donna.
The town of Wareham has had an increase in people dumping trash in the woods. And that's
It's free that way.
what?
It's free that way.
Yes, free. And it's an increase in that type of problem. And I know, we prepared in this town, we have a huge cranberry buds and land. Are we ready for that type of problem in this town? That's all I want.
Trail cameras.
Already off of Meadow Street, there's a place where the couches, I've seen TVs and this stuff, this past Pope Spring.
So the Board of Health is in charge of illegal debris in the town of Carver, and the Board of Health has instituted new regulations they did last year to combat any perceived or actual increase in any type of theft. In addition to that, they are also coordinating with the police department, and where we have known trails or places that people have dumped before, is that they're under surveillance. And you may have all remembered about 2 months ago, it was, I think it was in Wareham, going through Carver, is we did find somebody that was illegally dumping. And the police, through forensics information, have the ability of tracking back where the garbage comes from, and they will use all efforts to go after that. And the fine structure is significantly higher, that I don't think anyone will ever do this twice.
Cool. Anybody else?
Mr. Badger?
Mr. Badger?
I had a, earlier you were talking about recycled materials being seen as a commodity, maybe not as much right now, but I don't know if the idea of a composting facility has ever been explored as some other facilities that I'm familiar with, that ends up translating into almost half of the tonnage, which is what's used for calculating these contracts in the first place. And I don't know if that was something that was ever in a dialogue with the 9-person committee in terms of looking for alternatives for this issue. I would imagine that probably not until everybody is on a private haul will they care about the tonnage issue, if they have the sticker option. It's something to...
Composting just food waste or anything biodegradable?
Well, I mean, we can all compost ourselves, I know that, but composting as a commodity. There are municipalities and facilities that use whether it be apartment buildings or whether it be small communities or full municipalities that use it as a source of revenue to offset costs for the operating costs, for example. Case in point, Rikers Island, New York, that's how they run their whole, or half their facilities by reselling high-end compost to different agricultural groups based on the waste that's processed, just food waste.
There used to be a magazine back when I first moved into town, the recycling committee. It got called Garbage Magazine. I don't know whether you saw that, Jeff.
Page turner.
They had an article in there about,
Page turner.
They had an article about commercial composting. You know, the towns had a very cylindrical, everything that was biodegradable was thrown in there. And I remember the last thing in the article was what to do with all the compost. But the facility exists, or the ability to do it.
Now there are private companies that come in and do this service for towns. One's called Black Earth, or there's I think they're actually might even be Massachusetts based. There are some very again the Rikers Island one is a very low tech system that any town could do. If you have a payloader, any town could do that. Something to consider as it directly relates to the
We will continue to take this up. We needed a place to start. Gentlemen, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I just thought it was something that needed to come out and start to have a little more dialogue than we've had.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So I appreciate it very much. I'd like a motion to continue to table the grant program.
Make a motion. I make a motion.
Need a
A second.
Motion made and seconded to continue to table the grant program. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Tabled. Oh, very quickly, this should be very quick. We got a transfer request tonight, and I only have the one copy, so I'm gonna pass it around to everyone. Actually, I have the second copy, too. Let's look at that one. And I'll send this that way, and then when I get it back, It's a transfer request from EMS for a phone system. Because Pilgrim is shutting down, they have removed their, unless I read that wrong, they've removed the phone system from the EMS, from the emergency services in the basement. This is to put a phone system back in. So the transfer request came today from Tom Walsh, who's the director. No, it's not from EMS, I apologize. It's from Emergency Management, which is also, he's the director of. I'm gonna ask Michael, help me out here for a moment. This transfer for Tom Walsh, we just got this today at 4 o'clock, literally at 4 o'clock, and I could not get it on the agenda. Apparently, it's still in order because,
You weren't aware of it 48 hours in advance. It did come up from Tom Walsh unannounced. So you're just getting this right now, so you can act on this within 48 hours.
there is no emergency and there is no gun to our head, and I will take the input from this board, whether they want to deal with this tonight or they want to postpone this until after the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, because we won't be able to take it up at that meeting. Because we have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, so we'd have to take it up at the following meeting in March. We can simply vote this tonight, or we can,
Well, is it,
it's not an emergency, but I got the notice from Shelby today, literally at 3:58 PM. By the time I picked the phone up, Town Hall was closed. There was a lot of people on vacation last week, and that's why it didn't get here. The dates on the thing are from the beginning of the month. I would have thought it should have been here with plenty of notice. So I will take to the pleasure of the board. My initial reaction was no, but I will leave it up to you guys as to what you want to do. You want to hold off until we can post this properly and perhaps have Tom come tell us why he's looking for this and what's the story?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
If it's not time sensitive, why rush it?
It is not.
Your reaction, you said your reaction was no. No to what?
My reaction
The request period?
was
or
no,
the
not to
change?
vote on this tonight.
Oh, no to, not
Because,
to vote on it
because there
tonight.
wasn't
Still-
enough, because we weren't able to post it, and I didn't think it was right. It never made it on the agenda.
No, I agree with that. I didn't know whether you just want to throw it out.
No, I don't want to throw it out, I don't disagree with it. I just, it's not like it's been installed and this is a bill that is now due,
Right.
Right.
so it's,
If there's any question about the legality of it coming in, maybe just postpone it.
well, that's the problem I have with it, is if, I don't want someone to raise an issue out of this as part of the good old boy network where, we slid this in the last minute with no notice to anybody and it got approved.
Makes sense to wait.
I prefer to see it wait, but I wanted to give it to the board and see what your pleasure was. So I will take that motion.
Never do today what you can put off until tomorrow.
I second that.
There you go.
Procrastinator's motto.
Well, I need a motion to hold off. Postpone this until the second meeting in March.
So moved?
a second?
Second. So we're gonna postpone the request for transfer from the reserve fund for emergency operations to the second meeting in March. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What's that? Can I have that other copy back? It's floating around.
Making its way. On the way back.
It's on the way. Okay, so that's been postponed. Very quickly, we have to deal with the budget for Old Colony. I did attend the meeting. We're going to hold off to the second meeting in March on the reserve transfer. I went to Old Colony, and I guess very quickly, the bottom line is, I gave you the printouts for last year in this proposed one. So really, the bottom line is they're going from $13,398 per student FY20 to $13,725 with 2 less children. So they ran through it. There's some increase in Chapter 70 funds. This year's, on the FY21, they did include the Chapter 70 portion, so it shows the actual cost per kid. Carver does the same thing. They show what our cost is going to be, and then they show what the Chapter 70 money injected into it. Because Chapter 70 for Carver is paid directly to Old Colony, the $13,725 is the check that we write them per kid. So the assessment for this year is $1,252,000, I can't even read it, $745. Last year was $1,219,241. I don't think it's a ridiculous increase, and frankly, there's not a whole lot we can do about it anyway, so they asked for our support. So, if there's any discussion, that's fine. If not, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to move this forward for the,
I think this one just goes back to Old Colony.
Oh, it does?
We just simply
That's
approve it, and then we tell Old Colony we got a good-to-go thing, and
I
that's
make a
it.
motion to approve the $1,262,745 to Old Colony.
Need a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion made and seconded for Old Colony for the assessment for this year of $1,262,745. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Easy peasy. Grant program's been tabled. That's all done. Town clerk's all done. Apparently, we had no administrator update, because he left. Just the minutes. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes? I think I sent them to you also. Nice job, Mary Ann. I don't know how you kept track of all this, but you did a good job with this. We good? Motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from February 10th, 2020.
I second.
Motion made and seconded for the minutes approved, February 10th, 2020. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And Kevin will abstain, right? So we're 8-0-1. Good. The only thing I have is just a quick reminder, the MMA Legislative Breakfast is on March 6th. I have signed up Marie. Beth, you're on. I am going. Kate was registered. She removed herself from it. She can't make it.
What time is that?
8 o'clock
Oh,
at the fire station.
okay, right.
Oh, that's right.
Anybody else interested in going, either shoot me an email or let me know. They're pretty flexible, so we can, if you're not sure, you can hold off until the end, or...
Yeah.
You want to go?
Yeah, same here, Alan. I'm gonna plan to go.
Alright.
Yep.
I'll call my boss and see if I can get the day off.
I need a letter.
Oh, my boss?
Yeah.
On the agenda items, our next meeting's on February 3rd with a joint meeting with Select Board.
It's March 3rd. I'm sorry. I was pretty,
Got the time machine.
I just wonder, it goes along with the trash.
listen, you're lucky it didn't say 2019. Thank you for bringing that up.
That's-
So it is March 3rd with the select board. I don't think they're gonna provide us with cake and cookies.
That's voting day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, as a matter of fact.
We have early voting.
Yeah, Mark Townsend's all bent out of shape because he said, I'm gonna have to keep looking at my phone to get the secret text to find out what, because he's running for state committeeman.
Right.
So he said, I won't know if I won or not. And I'm stuck here, I'm stuck at the select board meeting during the meeting.
What time is that?
And the bowls close
7
at 8
o'clock.
o'clock, right?
Oh, that's,
Polls close at
it's gonna
8.
be at 7 o'clock.
Well, they'll do what they do. They'll open their meeting, the pledge, the Area 58 thing, the
Okay.
citizen participation, and then we're gonna roll into the joint meeting. So. And we should all have preliminary copies of the budget, of the warrant by that time. I'm hoping. I think that's all that we had. I think that was it.
Alan,
Yes, sir.
just get a copy of this disposal crisis thing, which is in the summer.
Yes, I do.
I have, I got a copy, and I can give it to whoever wants it, pass it around, make copies. But this was given by Mike Camara, who runs ABC on the Bedford Waste, to the town of Howard. It's just bullet points. It's it's big print, not too long.
You know, I'll make life easy for everybody because it's getting late. So I'll go home tonight and I'll tear this apart and I'll
Scan it.
I'll scan it.
What's it called?
And I'll send everybody a copy.
Right.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts Disposal Crisis, 2019 to 2020 for the town of Howard.
Should go there, Howard.
Fire, pants on fire. I don't know this is all the scare stuff that's going on with trash. It's like,
Well, this guy runs the things. I mean, it's a problem.
I still say with
It's
the
going to
town
be a
of
problem.
Carver, no disrespect, I think these guys have done a hard job. I think this is a great thing that they've done. I think that Michael stepped up to the plate the day that what's his name walked in and gave us a bill for $60,000. He said, I'm not paying. But I also think that this crisis could easily have been avoided. This has been 20 years in the making. The day they signed the contract 20 years ago, they knew it had a sunset. So suddenly it's 2020 and oh my God, what do we do, really? Where have you been the last 5, 6 years in dealing with the upcoming, this is gonna come and bite us pretty soon.
But Mike points out this is not just a town thing or a district thing. He points out in here that there's been a ban on waste-to-energy plants like CMAS, and he sees that as one way of handling it. There's always a need to get rid of trash, there's always a need for waste.
Well, he's right, there's always gonna be trash.
But, and I mentioned it to Jeff, and he said it's like the state. They're gonna wait until the trash is piled up in front of the State House, and then something will be done.
You know, why
You know, I
don't
don't-
New York City
why not-
ships all their trash to New
Want
Jersey?
some light reading for Adam?
I'll read it for sure.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll scan it tonight. You got a clean copy? 'Cause
Yeah,
you
I
got notes
one here
written
that
all
you-
over
you-
this.
You can take and.
Yeah, why not swap with you? Because you wrote all kinds of stuff all over that. Had all kinds of hate notes and stuff in that one there. I just, a lot of what Bill says, even though we all think he's wacky, he's right on the mark. He's right on the mark because burning it is a solution, but EPA doesn't let you burn. So I still think it's better than burying it. Burying it is where we have a problem in North Carver. Burying it will come back and bite all of us somewhere along the line. At least if you're burying the ash, I would imagine the ash is a little safer than the trash.
I'm surprised at how fast the landfill over in South Carver came up even after CMAS. I mean, just the amount of ash that's, and plus there are times when it's shut down, they still have to bury this stuff too.
There's
But
how many
you gotta do something
trucks a
with
day
it.
dumping in?
I mean, new innovative ways to deal with the ash. I mean, stuff has got to happen that, to take care of this stuff,
I don't know that there is I'm absolutely convinced that there is no, quote, simple solution. I think no matter how we're gonna cut this cake, it's gonna be an expensive solution.
Yep.
And the other thing is it's not gonna make everybody happy.
No.
Those that wanna go to the dump are gonna be irritated that they can't anymore, and those that don't and want the private hauler are not gonna wanna subsidize the transfer station. So,
Should be out of town.
there is no win-win,
No.
at least not as far as I see.
But a decision has to be made one way or the other, because people need to go out and interview with each one of these trash haulers, make their separate contracts with them and go through it, but you can't wait till December 31st and then wake up on.
And honestly and truly, I think it would have been better to have it on a ballot question
Yeah.
than even town meeting vote. Because you're gonna get 350 people show up at town meeting, you could have, 1,200 show up for an election. I'd want as big a number as I could possibly get. Then it's pretty hard to refute. It was on the ballot, we voted it down, or we voted for it. Majority rules. Town meeting's the next best thing.
Right.
I certainly don't want a committee in charge of it.
It scares me.
Not the way that works out. Let's go buy some brand-new stuff and sign a bond. Here's your bill. Write us a check. Really? Not good. Anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night, everybody.